Sure. I formally welcome today's speaker, Mr. R.P. Chaturvedi. And I, on behalf of the Faculty of Legal Studies Chairperson, Honorable Dr. Stalina Jolly, and all other my learned colleagues as a faculty collective, I formally welcome you all. And let me introduce Mr. R.P. Chaturvedi. Mr. R.P. Chaturvedi is the co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of the Global Policy Insights. He is also a lecturer at the San Francisco State University, where he teaches comparative perspective on public service to graduate students. He is a graduate of the Cornell Institute for Public Affairs. Mr. Arpit holds an MPA degree with a focus on governance, politics, and policy studies. He was also the first non-US citizen to hold the position of the editor-in-chief of the Cornell Policy Review. He has been contributing in the area of climate change, in the area of policy matters, governance, transparencies, and other important incidental issues which have been very dear to his heart. And he has immensely contributed and collaborated with other educational institutions. He is a widely acclaimed critic of the governmental policies. He also provides a lot of policy insights on these issues that immensely facilitated the legislative exercises of the respective governments and jurisdictions across the world. And now I hand over the floor to Mr. Arpit Chaturvedi. I formally welcome you on behalf of the South Asian University, particularly of its Faculty of Legal Studies. And definitely, I am looking forward for a very, very interactive, vibrant, and thriving deliberations today. Thank you very much, Mr. Arpit Chaturvedi. Arpit Chaturvedi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. It is a pleasure to be here. Just a small correction. I was teaching at the San Francisco State University. I don't teach there right now. But as Dr. Nafis Ahmed said that I used to study at Cornell, and a lot of what we are going to be discussing was taught to me at Cornell University by Dr. Kaushik Basu, who has been the president of the World Bank, vice president of the World Bank, and the chief economic advisor of the country. Now, today, what we're going to discuss is about game theory and how game theory serves as a useful lens for us to look at public policy, to look at laws, why a lot of laws are, if you don't look at the game of life for people, why a lot of laws just remain ink on paper and they never get implemented. So, I mean, right now, majority of us are in Delhi, and we must be experiencing a number of issues because of the bad quality of air. And this happens every year, right? I just wonder if somebody could tell me, if somebody could unmute themselves, and I'd really appreciate if some of us could keep our cameras on so that we can have an interactive session. But I'd really appreciate if somebody could unmute themselves and tell us, why does Delhi face such amounts of pollution and such amounts of bad quality air every time during this time in the year? Anybody?
If I may.
Go ahead, Arnav.
Sir, actually, like, it's coming from the newspapers and everything, so multiple factors, like the geographical location of Delhi, it forms a low pressure, like low-lying area.
Yeah.
So because of that, it basically acts as a sink, and all of the air from the surrounding areas, it enters in. So during this time, we have farmers burning a lot of the wheat stubble. So there's air from there. Then there's vehicular pollution, which emanates inside Delhi. And there's pollution emanating from some industries on the outskirts.
Yeah.
And I think that's
awesome. So Arnav, just to follow up over there, that except for one geographical situation that you said that it's a low pressure area. Besides that, most of the other things seem to be under human control. Is that right? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So the question is, you talked about stubble burning, you talked about vehicular pollution, you talked about industries that are operating in various parts. Why is it that each year we are not able to rein in stubble burning? Why is it that each year we are not able to rein in vehicular pollution? And why is it we are not able to rein in industrial pollution, when we know that the consequences of health, property, etc., because this pollution are huge?
Okay. After reading a lot of op-eds on it and being personally affected by it every time I cough in
Yeah,
the season, I mean, it's a lot of policy paralysis, and like there's probably no alternative. Like when it comes to farming, for example, our farmers have heavily relied on growing wheat and rice like ever since Green Revolution.
yeah,
So the sort of substitution which could ensure that stubble is not burned to that extent, I mean, that's not ensured by the government. I mean, that sort of encouragement is not given. When it comes to the industries, our state complex is in a pretty pathetic state. Now,
right.
in in terms of vehicular pollution, we have solutions like odd even. I mean, I don't think it's a long-term solution to this problem.
Right. So in a way, that's to say that any sort of a government law or any sort of a government policy does not really change people's game of life. It doesn't really change the way that people would behave in a particular manner. Some government laws and policies do, but then there are many government laws and policies which, despite being there, do not change the day-to-day behavior of the people. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So here's a question that I would want somebody else to answer. Can someone tell me another example where we have a particular public policy issue? There's probably even a law about it. And I hear us saying so many times that in India we have beautiful laws. We have laws which are very well written, but they're never implemented well. Uh, is there anybody who would want to take a stab at an example where there is a great law in place, but there is, it doesn't really change anything on the ground. The problem still persists. Like you had this particular air pollution issue. Uh, how about some other issue that you might want to talk about, that there's a problem, there is a law that should deal with that problem, but despite the law, the problem still persists? Anybody? I can give you a couple examples just to get you to think. One is, uh, the Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act. You have the act, but you still have so many people exploiting the scheduled caste population. Or you have laws against corruption, but you still have corruption. You have laws against polluting the river. You have, judgments from the National Green Tribunal against polluting the river. But I'm sure some of us have seen those photographs of that white snow, that froth in the Yamuna River. So just trying to understand if anybody can think of a policy. We're all comfortable with Hindi as well, right? We do understand Hindi over here. Anybody who can think of a law where
Well, let me bring it to your notice, Mr. Chaturvedi. We are
Sure.
having 8 nationalities, so everybody doesn't understand Hindi.
Perfect, perfect. So I'll stick to English.
Yes.
So my question over here is, can we think of a law which exists that is not really able to solve the particular policy problem? The law is there, the law looks beautiful on paper, but when you implement it, nothing really on the ground. And you can talk about, I know that, you know, there are members from all the SAC countries over here. Any example from your own countries is also welcome. Anybody?
Sir, recently, I think so. One example that comes to my mind is domestic violence.
Yes.
Like there are, although there is a law, however, there are reports suggesting that there is an increase in number rather than decrease.
Despite despite the number of laws, policies that deter you against domestic violence, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's a good one. That's a good one, Karishma. Now, the reason why I'm asking you these questions is to build a sense that a lot of times having a law is not sufficient. Having a law is not sufficient as a solution in order to get people to change their behaviors, in order to get people to change the way that they live their lives. And once you start realizing that, you need to design laws in a manner that it changes people's game of life. Okay. Now, let me give you an example of one particular law or one particular policy that any country would have, and it's super easy to implement that law or policy. Okay. And that is when we have a law or a policy or just a norm on as to which side of the road to drive on. You know, in India, we all drive on the left side of the road. If you're traveling to Europe or if you're traveling to the US, you're all traveling to the right side of the road. You don't really need a lot of policing. You don't really need a lot of people enforcing which side of the road one has to drive on. And, it's interesting to notice that people, just follow what the law is in that case. I mean, the government just have to come in and play the role of a coordinator or just, a signaler, where the government signals that, hey, in this country, we are all going to drive on the left side of the road. Everybody starts driving on the left side road as if it's magic, right? And the government comes in and says that, okay, we'll all drive on the right side of the road in this country, and everybody starts driving on the right side of the road. Almost as if it's magical. Okay. You hardly need so many police folks to stand in there and to enforce that, hey, Arnav, or hey, Karishma, if you're in India, don't drive on the right side of the road. You automatically start just following the law. Why is that happening? Anybody who can answer this? Sagar or Babar or Ahmad? Anybody who can answer this? Why don't you one day just wake up and start driving on the other side of the road? Why do you follow this law every day? Why do the same people who would not reduce crop burning? Okay, so there they are not following the law, but the same people will drive on the left side of the road. They're not gonna, suddenly wake up and start driving on the right side of the road. Why is that not happening? Anybody? Babar, Ahmad? Ahmad, I saw you were taken there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the loss is very, like, when it comes to losses and gains, People try to rationalize their adherence or, avoiding of law. It depends on what they get and what they lose, right? I think in this case, it's inevitable that they will end up losing much more than the punitive action that could be taken out of them, like loss of life or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that reality is much more intense in this scenario.
So it's just immediate that, if one day if you start driving on the right side of the road, you will essentially be in for an accident. You'll probably just crash into somebody, and there's no incentive for you to automatically on your own just change from your driving strategy to driving from the left to the right?
Yeah.
No, that's a good one. And herein we come to the concept of a Nash equilibrium. A Nash equilibrium is that set of strategies wherein a unilateral shift from that strategy is not in anybody's personal incentive or personal interest. Nobody has the incentive to unilaterally shift from that strategy to another strategy. So if everyone is driving to the left, there is no sense in unilaterally starting to drive towards the right. Or if everyone is driving on the right, there is no incentive that anybody has to unilaterally shift their strategy from right to left. Is that clear, everybody? Anybody has a question on what a Nash equilibrium is? Because now this is going to get a little more complex. There's a reason why I'm not going to my presentations right now. I want you all warmed up. I want you all to get into the mindset of thinking in games right now. Okay. Anybody who has a question on the definition of Nash equilibrium? It is that set of strategies wherein all of the society, let's say, is playing left. You are playing left, but it is not in your it is not in your interest to unilaterally change the strategy from left to right one fine day. Doesn't really help you unilaterally, right? Okay. Similar question on Nash equilibrium, and after that, I promise I'm going to move to the slideshow. Why, in India, there used to be a time where giving and taking bribes, both was illegal, both was punishable by law. Okay. And and this is a story that Dr. Kaushik Vasu told me, that when he was the chief economic advisor over here, him and a number of other folks, other advisors and economists, they went to Manmohan Singh and they said to the Honorable Prime Minister that let us not have giving bribe as a punishable offense. Let's just keep taking bribe as a punishable offense. Why do you think that was happening? So earlier, giving bribe, taking bribe, both were punishable. And these bunch of economists, they go to the Prime Minister, they say that taking bribe should still be punishable, giving bribe should not be punishable. Why do you think that was happening? Anybody?
So possibly because if you are penalizing the people who are also giving bribes, they are interested to act together with the people receiving bribes and evade the law. Whereas in this scenario, in which giving bribes is not an offense, you can actually give bribes and choose to and the law can choose to penalize the person accepting the bribes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So well analyzed over there, Yash. The idea over here is that whenever you have both the things punishable by law, then the bribe giver and the bribe taker, their incentives are completely aligned once that exchange of bribe has taken place. Once the bribe giver has given the bribe, they are on the wrong side of the law. Once the bribe taker has accepted the bribe, they are on the wrong side of the law. Now, that forms a Nash equilibrium. It is in nobody's unilateral incentive to single-handedly change their strategy from stay silent to report, right? Both of them will, will get punished if either of them goes out and report. But on the other hand, what happens is that if only taking bribe is punishable by law, giving bribe is not punishable by law, then once a person has some work, they give their bribe, they get their work done. Hopefully in the next round of the game, they would be able to report to the police, they would be able to report to the CBI or the enforcement directorate that, hey, this IAS officer asked for bribe. That time I had my work. Now my work is done. I paid bribe, but then I don't want the others to suffer, so I'm reporting. And while giving the bribe, I was not on the wrong side of the law. I was just under pressure. So it breaks that sort of a Nash equilibrium. Earlier, there was a Nash equilibrium that giving bribe, taking bribe, both were creating a situation that it was in nobody's unilateral incentive to change from keep silent to report. So their strategy would always remain keep silent. Okay. All right. So having set the stage, I am going to quickly share my screen and I'm going to show you how do we formally understand this whole concept of Nash equilibrium. Okay. So over here, this is how you represent any particular game. This is a payoff matrix that you're seeing in front of you. And this is the car driving problem that I'm talking to you about. So let's say there is one player, which is the society. Okay. And then there is another player, that's you. All right. I would really, really request if some of us could have our cameras on, because otherwise it's just hard for me to talk to a blank screen, and then we would not be able to have a good educational experience. I mean, if we even a couple of us have our cameras on, then we'll be able to understand and get into a discussion, because at some point of time, you will be a citizen who's either in the policy making position or just generally frustrated that, okay, why are we not able to solve some of our society's problems with the best of the laws? Okay. Thanks, Yash. So this is one player. Okay. And this is one player over here. All right. This player plays columns. So, to change their strategy, they could move from column 1 to column 2. Okay. And this player, to change their strategy, they could go from, they play rows, they play, this row to that row. Okay. Incidentally, both have 2 strategies right now. Otherwise it doesn't have to be like this. Maybe this player could have 3 strategies as well. But for this particular driving game, both of them have 2 strategies each, and both those strategies are mirroring each other. They're complementary. Left, right, left, right. Okay. The numbers that you see in blue over here before the comma, they are the payoff that this player gets. Okay. And the numbers you see in red, they are the payoffs that this player over here gets. So a 5 over here means that I will get a benefit of 5, which is a benefit of reaching somewhere in time, unharmed, unhurt, if I play left and the society is also playing left. So if I drive on the left side of the road, the society is also driving on the left side of the road, I receive a benefit of 5 and the society receives a benefit of 5. Okay, let's just say that. Okay. If the society is driving on the right side of the road, I drive on the right side of the road, let's say we get a benefit of 5. Okay. Both of these are Nash equilibria. This is Nash equilibrium number 1. This is Nash equilibrium number 2. Why? Because it is not in my benefit to unilaterally change my strategy from left to right, move from 5, left to right, move from 5 to -1, wherein I start driving on the right and then I get into a car crash with somebody else in the society. So I get hurt, the society get hurt. This is not in my unilateral incentive. Okay. Similarly, if we are both driving on the right, I would not change my strategy from right to left, which is I won't go from 5 to -1 because, I don't want to crash into anybody. Similarly, if you're a person in the society, then you don't want to go from 5 to -1 over here because you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to start driving on the left side, move from right to left in a society which is all driving on the right. Okay, so we have 2 Nash equilibria in this game. This is just to understand what the concept of Nash equilibrium is. Okay. Now, with things like air pollution, with things like water pollution, with things like wars between countries. In fact, one of our favorite things to do in the think tank, we have a whole body of research on why certain cooperative arrangements, let us say SARC, for example, NATO is an example, Shanghai Cooperation Organization is an example, why some of them are successful, others are not. And this particular game that we're going to play, it explains why, certain countries, they are not able to cooperate effectively, why certain countries enter into war, why, when we are talking about resource management, especially when these are public goods such as clean air, clean water, things like that, we are not able to do a good job of managing this, and we always get to the worst possible outcome. Okay, so I'm going to play a game of 5 apples over here, and I need a volunteer. So anybody who can just volunteer to play this game with me today afternoon. So we have to distribute 5 apples amongst the both of us. I need 1 volunteer for this. Anybody who wants to play this game with me?
Play it, so Yash.
Yash, you'll play this?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Okay, let's have 2 volunteers. I'll have you 2 play against each other. So Yash, and do we have another person over here who would like to play? Vinita, are you there? Please do remember, we are going to give you the certificate only if we know that you are attending. Farhana, Meenakshi, Wasaf, Shivani.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Who's this? Shivani.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Yash and Shivani, you 2 are going to play this game of apples over here. The setting is pretty simple. You have 5 apples kept inside of a classroom. You guys are standing outside of the classroom right now. How would you divide these 5 apples amongst yourself? So Yash and Shivani, please discuss and please tell us how you're going to divide these 5 apples. Let us say these apples, they represent the sum total of all resources in the world. Okay. It's a simple problem, right?
Shivani, would you like to divide this equally?
So since the apples represent resources, the only thing that I can think of is, the only way that I can think of is maybe I can keep or give the resources that the other person is lacking.
Okay.
And I can have the ones that I don't. But
Okay.
then the problem comes up, like, what if we have the same resource that both of us lack?
That's the kind of situation over here. You both don't have apples to eat, and you would only survive by eating apples over here. Let us assume, ceteris paribus, you have the same appetite. Both of you can eat the same amount of apples. You feel equally hungry. Yash is pretty clear. He wants to divide it equally. Shivani, it's on you.
Is 2.5 possible?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you both agree? 2.5, 2.5?
Yeah, we'll agree
Okay.
to that.
But only if things were so simple in this world. The challenge over here is that when you are entering the room, okay, and remember, this is a one-time game. When you are entering a room, what happens is that Yash or Shivani, either of you, let's say, initially to begin with, Yash starts having some doubts, and Yash starts thinking that, hey, you know what? Talk is cheap. Shivani could have told me that, we are going to play nice. Okay, there are two ways to play it. That one is that you play it nice and you coolly walk into the room. You start looking for a knife where that knife is kept so that you can cut down that, one extra apple and divide it equally, and then keep two each, and then cut down this half, so 2.5, 2.5. But what if, Yash thinks that I play that nice strategy and Shivani decides to play the not nice strategy, which is also called the not cooperate strategy, which is also called the defect or the hawk strategy. So what if Yash is the dove, okay, and Shivani plays the hawk, and while Yash is slowly walking in, Shivani rushes in, takes all of the 5 apples, runs away. It's not going to meet again, right? It's a one-shot game. And that is not a position where Yash would want to be in. So this is what you guys promised. And, Yash started thinking that what if Shivani is a hawk and Shivani runs away with all 5 and I get nothing. Okay. At the same time, it's entirely possible that Shivani is also thinking in the same manner. That, you see, talk is cheap. What if I play nice, I am moving in, and Yash decides to pounce upon all of the apples, run away, and I'm left with nothing. Okay. Talk is cheap. You don't know, with that conversation as to what the other person is going to do. And the issue is an issue of your survival. What are you going to do now? Both of you are thinking like this. Maybe you could meet again. Maybe you could talk. But what's that going to change?
It shouldn't change a lot. Then basically the fight essentially becomes over who gets to enter the room first, if both of us are outside the room and if both of us.
So I'll ask you both the same question again. Will you, when you enter the room, what are you going to do? Are you going to play hawk? Are you going to play dove?
If both of us are viewing being hawks and trying to appropriate all the apples for ourselves.
So let's say if both of you are being hawks, you will enter into a fight, okay? Literally a fist fight, okay? And you will destroy 1 apple in that fight, okay? And then after that, maybe you'll leave with 2 each.
But
Okay.
then if we are playing hawk, then why even give away 2 apples?
Yeah, because if both of you are playing hawks, then that's what's going to happen. If one of you plays hawk and the other plays dove, then the hawk can run away with all the 5.
Right.
So now, again, you're standing outside of the room. You know that the other person could cheat. The other person could play hawk. What will be your strategy, Shivani? What will be your strategy, Yash?
Whoever is quick.
Okay, so which means that you will play hawk. You will try to be the quicker person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I sense that the other person is also trying to do the same, so before he leaps onto the apple, why not I do it?
Why not you do it? Yeah.
It's about
Right.
survival end of the day, right?
Yeah. Yash, how about
Right.
you?
I by nature would be a dove, but in this situation, I would choose to be a hawk. Even if both of us go for the hawk strategy, we do end up with 2 apples. Even though one resource gets destroyed, we both end up with 2
Yeah.
apples. So in my head,
Exactly.
like, the hawk strategy makes sense.
So,
Exactly.
sir, isn't that the case that if both of us are hawks, so is it that ideal situation where both of us are equally powerful or
Yeah,
strong?
we are assuming we are working under
Okay.
some assumptions that if both of you play hawk, you will eventually be able to get to the table at the same time. You will enter into a fight, you will destroy 1 apple, and you'd be able to leave with 2 each. Okay. So now the thing is that if you are rational players, then both of you will play hawk. And for each of you, irrespective of the strategy that the other plays, if Shivani doesn't know Yash, okay, Shivani doesn't know whether Yash is going to play the hawk or Shivani or Yash is going to play the dove. The safest, the foolproof strategy for Shivani is to always play hawk. Always play hawk, right? Because if Yash is a hawk, then Shivani leaves with 2. If Yash is a dove, then Shivani leaves with all 5. Okay. As opposed to a strategy, if Shivani plays always dove, then there is a scenario where Shivani could just leave with nothing, right? So either Shivani will have 2.5 or Shivani will have 0. Okay. So if you were to calculate it, it looks something like this, that if you play dove and the other person is a hawk, okay, then you get 0. You are playing dove, the other person is a dove, you get 2.5. Okay. The average of 0 and 2.5 is 1.25. Okay. So this is the average payoff for the dove strategy. Okay. And if you play the hawk, the other plays the hawk, then you get 2. And you play the hawk and the other plays dove, then you get 5. The average of 2 and 5 is 3.5. Right? So we already know which strategy is better over here if we are rational players. And this is what we call the tragedy of the commons. Can you intuitively link it to some of the water management, climate change, other resource management issues around us? That eventually, as rational players, eventually we would play hawk. What if I don't burn my crop? Others are still going to burn their crops. Why should I suffer? And what if I have to install that water treatment plant before throwing out my waste in Yamuna? I will spend that extra money. The others are not going to spend any extra money. So other factories are still going to remain competitive. I would have incurred that extra expenditure. And the river is still dirty. And I'm now uncompetitive in the market as well. So just play hawk, right? And that's the tragedy of the commons. And over here, if you look at it, hawk, or, not defect, that's the Nash equilibrium. If you look at it over here, the reason why it is a Nash equilibrium is that let's say this is Shivani. Shivani can play like this, defect, cooperate. This is Yash. Yash can play like this, defect, cooperate. So does Shivani want to move from defect to cooperate from a situation where unilaterally Shivani wants to change her own strategy, and while Yash is playing defect, Shivani would play cooperate and leave with 0. No incentive to change the strategy, right? Similarly, if you're here, then for Yash, no incentive to change the strategy from defect to cooperate, okay? But if you're here, there's always an incentive. If, let's say, you both were cooperating, one way to test is, imagine this is where you are right now. If you both were here, then you would always want to move from cooperate to defect, Shivani. And Yash would always want to move from cooperate to defect, because 5 is just better than 2.5, right? So this is not a Nash equilibrium. This is a Nash equilibrium, okay? Typically, this is the sort of game that happens when you're looking at wars as well. You know, there are two countries facing each other. You know, they could cooperate, they could play nice, they could maintain world peace, okay? Or they could just get into wars which are expensive for both the sides. But country A thinks that, what if I don't attack? I am playing the nice person. Let's say it's a conflicted territory. Now we have a few of those between us and our neighbors as well. Let us say country A says, I will not move in. I am going to play dove. But, you know, what if country B moves in and they take over all of the territory? I don't want to do that, right? So my best strategy is always to move in. And similarly, country B's best strategy is to always move in. And so you get stuck in that sort of a prisoner's dilemma. This is called a prisoner's dilemma, where you have a very bad Nash equilibrium. Okay. And this is the large problem of game theory. This is the large problem of law, that no matter how much a law would tell you that cooperate is the right thing to do. Okay, no matter how much a law tells you that, okay, this is where you need to go, you would always try to evade it, because your game of life doesn't change with the demands of the law. Okay, so now my question is that, how do you change this game? Like, how do you ensure that cooperate becomes a Nash equilibrium? Okay. There are 4 strategies to it. There are 4 ways in which you can create good Nash equilibria. Extra points to anybody who can think of even 1 or 2. So anybody who wants to tell us that, how can we change the game, the setting of the game, so that our strategy, our Nash equilibrium changes from defect to cooperate. Notice I'm not saying 2-2 is our Nash equilibrium. Nash equilibrium is always defined in strategy sense, not in terms of payoffs. So in this game of apples, how do I ensure that cooperate becomes the Nash equilibrium? Anybody wants to take a stab at it?
Introduce arbitrators. Give the decision to someone else.
Okay. How do you think that's going to help? So you both, again, are standing outside of the classroom with the apples.
Yeah, we assign a third party. The third party makes the decision for us to either cooperate, or defect. And even if it's defect, he's the one dividing the apples, so does it equitably. And we perhaps pay him the 1 extra apple.
Okay, so you pay me, let's say I am that arbitrator over here. Okay. And you will pay me 1 apple. All right. So anyway, you're going to end up with 2. Then what's the point of having me in the first place?
Or if ideally we are not paying the arbitrator.
Okay, so maybe you don't pay me. Maybe I'm the person who just wants 1 seed in the apple. So it doesn't really matter to you. The fee is negligible.
In
and
that
then I
sense,
say that, okay, I am going to go in, all right, and I'm going to divide these apples into 2.5. I'm going to give it to you. Okay, I'm going to give it to Shivani. All right. Now, if you didn't trust Shivani, why would you trust me? Am I not a player? And this is a big mistake that we do in designing policies, that we think that just because we have an officer, the officer is a robot, the officer is an automaton. They don't have a game of life themselves. Right? Then why would you trust me? Maybe what I will do is that I will keep four apples myself, and I would, if I have control over the apples, I'll keep 4 apples myself, and I'd say that, okay, you have 1 apple, divide it half and half between each of you.
The idea would, in that sense, be that we both are happy to cooperate with this arbitrator because there's an element of trust individually with us and the arbitrator. So the inherent hawk character of us two ceases to matter because we both trust this arbitrator.
Sure. I mean, you can trust this arbitrator, but the thing is that, again, that is where corruption also sets in, right? Maybe you trust me, but maybe I'm not trustworthy. Right? So, okay, I'll give you one hint. Okay. I would, let's say, instead of an arbitrator, I would put a police person outside. Okay. That's one way to do it. And what the police person has to do is, or maybe it's a Robocop, it's not a real human being, it's a Robocop, which whenever it senses that anybody has defected, okay? So if the Robocop sees that Yash is coming out with 5 apples, which means that Yash played defect while Shivani played cooperate. Yash is coming out with 5 apples. It will impose a penalty of 4 apples on Yash. Okay. So it will take away 4 apples. So Yash will get just 1 if Yash is playing defect. Okay. Similarly, if Shivani is playing defect, it'll take away 4 apples. All right. And this we have told you already. Before you're entering the game, we have told you that, there is this Robocop sitting out here, and the Robocop just functions with this rule. They will check, they will scan the number of apples you're coming out with, and they will then figure out whether to let you go or to impose a penalty on you. All right. Now, what is the Nash equilibrium in this game, where the payoffs are 2, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1, 2.5, 2.5. What's the payoff in this game? What's the Nash equilibrium in this game? Again, Nash equilibrium is that bunch of strategies from which unilateral deviation doesn't really help you. There's no incentive for you to unilaterally change your strategy. Okay, so what's the Nash over here?
Sir, if I may.
Go ahead.
So, as you have disincentivized the defect part.
Adam, you got muted over there. Can you come again?
Yes, effectively, because of the disincentivization of the defection part, the only rational way to move ahead is by both cooperating, because in that state, both are better off. So even if you look at it unilaterally, 2.5 apples is the best that you can do instead of defecting and going for 5.
Okay. Is this a Nash now?
In that sense, 2.5 would be the best option, right?
True, but is this the Nash?
It should be, right?
It would be. Can you explain why? You're right. You're correct in saying that this would be a Nash. Can you explain why?
Because now the initial like if I acted unilaterally, the initial best choice was to defect and go for 5. But now if I go for 5, the reduction,
you will end up with just 1.
Yeah, so it doesn't work really.
Yeah.
And
So
the defect part gives me 2 apples. But if I go change my position, even if I go unilaterally cooperate,
yeah,
I come to 2.5. So for both the players, it is better that they go for 2.5.
absolutely. Thank you, Adam. Now over here, there are two Nash equilibria. One is a good one is a bad one. You have cooperate. This is stable. This is a Nash equilibria because over here, Shivani would not move unilaterally from cooperate to defect because 2.5 is better than 1, right? Similarly, Yash would not move from cooperate to defect like this because 2.5 is better than 1. This is indeed a Nash equilibrium, okay? Please do notice that defect is still a Nash equilibrium as well, right? Because if you are stuck here, God forbid, then Shivani doesn't want to move from 2 to 0 over here. Yash doesn't want to move from 2 to 0. So this is also a Nash equilibrium, but at least there is one good Nash equilibrium present in this game, right? Do we get this, Shivani, Yash, Arnav? Anybody who doesn't get this, please do stop me over here. Okay. All right. Now, the question to you is that what if I want to create a situation where there is only one good Nash equilibrium? I can program the Robocop sitting outside. Okay. How do I change its programming a little so that only cooperate remains a Nash equilibrium? Defect is not a Nash equilibrium at all. How do I do that?
So may I?
Go ahead. I can't see you. Who's speaking over here?
Deepansh.
Deepansh. All right, please.
So maybe we can put a threshold limit, a minimum and a maximum, and we
Okay.
can set a limit. So anybody cannot get below this, and anybody cannot get above this. So they have to have a cooperation in this scenario.
Deepanshu, are you still there? Am I audible, guys? Or
Yes, sir. Hello.
yes, Deepanshu, we lost you in the middle.
So I'm saying that we can create a threshold that
Okay.
there can be a minimum and there should be a maximum. So nobody can get below this and nobody can get beyond this.
So what would be your threshold in this particular case?
So in this particular case, I can set the limit that nobody will get more than 2.5 and less than 2.5. That is strict to 2.5 only.
Just stick to 2.5 and okay. Now what do I do if what should the robot do if it sees both the players coming out with 2 apples?
Okay, so yeah.
So the robot detects that both of them have played defect. What should the robot do now?
No idea to that. So that nobody gets a -1.
That's correct. So now if the robot is trained in a manner where if it even sees or senses both of them play defect, then it'll take away both of their apples. So they come out and the robot says, okay, Yash, you have 2 apples, which means you defected. I am going to take away your 2 apples. And here is a little bit of an electric shock to you so that you feel the pain of defecting. Okay. Now you can leave. Okay, Shivani, you are leaving with 2 apples. I see that you played defect. I'm going to take away your 2 apples. I'm also going to give you an electric shock just to make you unpleasant about defecting. Okay. And now, as you see, you only have one Nash equilibrium in this game. If you know that you both will defect and you will both be punished for it, not only will you not get an apple, you will also get a shock. If you know that if you unilaterally defect and the other person cooperates, you're going to get 1 apple. And if you know that if you cooperate, okay, you will get 2.5. So you would always cooperate in such a situation. All right. So there's only one Nash. So this is strategy number 1. We have 3 more strategies to go. This is the carrots and sticks strategy. And the problem with carrots and sticks strategy is that a lot of times we don't have that automaton robot. We have a person who's corruptible, who's not outside of the game, who then becomes part of the game, right? Because they have their own costs and benefits. They have their own incentives, right? So carrots and stick strategy, it could be effective, but a lot of times it leaves room for corruption. What are some of the other strategies that we may have? Let us say, we create this game as a multi-stage game. Okay, so let's say Yash and Shivani don't have to meet each other just once. They have to meet each other every day. Okay, and play this game. The game is back to the original one. There is no police, there is no robot, there is no automaton. But you both have to play this game on a daily basis. Every day you'll come and you'll play this game and you'll go. What do you think would be the outcomes? Would you then cooperate? Would you then learn how to cooperate? Yes, Shivani, but why is that? Or Yash, if you want to answer, Arnav or anybody else who wants to answer. Why, if I make it a repeated game that lasts until infinity, why will you start learning to cooperate?
So
because then, sorry,
Shivani, go ahead.
So I feel that if we don't learn to cooperate, it will be a vicious cycle, and we'll keep meeting each other, we'll keep fighting, and we'll keep.
You'll always be stuck at 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
And not just that, so it leads to wastage of resources also. So if we are both self-interested individuals, we would want to create a way in which either the automaton or the external agent, or even we don't waste resources by fighting amongst ourselves.
Sure. And, let's say there's no automaton. Even then, the reason why you will get the reason why you would want to avoid the 2, 2, 2, 2 forever sort of a strategy is there's a slightly more deeper reason to that. And to get to that, let me ask you that what if you were playing this game only twice? Will you be able to cooperate? So day 1 you play, day 2 you play again. What will be the thinking in your head? Will there be cooperation? There is no automaton. You're going to play that game, the same game, just 2 days in a row. Will there be cooperation amongst you? My answer, the right answer is no. Okay. But why is it no, if you can tell me? The game is not infinite. The game is just a 2-stage game. You'll play it today, Saturday, and then tomorrow on Sunday. After that, you don't see each other again.
Because there's a chance for supernatural gain in which, if at any point of time,
Sorry, Sagar, didn't get you over there.
Sir, I'm not speaking.
Okay, whoever is speaking didn't get that person.
Sagar, if you could just mute yourself, there's a lot of noise. Yeah. So what I was saying, sir, was that the optimal strategy in that case would be to defect, because in case the other person chose to cooperate, I have a chance for a supernatural gain on one of the days. Or because I can rely that the other person will choose to cooperate, I can choose to defect.
Yes. I mean, think of it this way. Both of you are playing this game on day 2, okay? And both of you are maximizers. Both of you are rational players. Both of you would want to have as many apples as you possibly can, okay? So on day 2, let's say Shivani thinks that, Yash would be wondering that on day 2, you would start backward calculating, okay? So on day 2, Yash would be thinking that, let me get all of the 5 apples, even if Shivani and we cooperated on day 1, day 2 pe I'll cheat. Okay. And on day 2, I can run away with 5, Shivani will run away with 0. Day 1, even if we cooperated, we'll have 2.5, 2.5 each. I am the overall winner. Okay. I can really maximize, make a killing on day 2. Okay. But Shivani knows that Yash will be thinking like that. Go ahead.
So what if I take away all the 5 apples on day 1 and not meet him on day 2?
Sure, you can do that. But on day 1 itself, we would not have that trust anyhow. On day 1 itself, the idea is that, you both would be stuck in that hawk dilemma, right? On day 1 itself. So here's how the thinking could go, Shivani. That day 2, you know that Yash will play hawk, so you will have to play hawk. So day 2 outcomes are all set. They are determined that you both have to play hawk. Okay. Now you want to maximize. The only option for you to maximize now is on day 1. All right. So day 1, you will play hawk because day 2 Yash is going to play hawk. You are going to play hawk. Now, Yash is also a rational player. Yash knows that that Yash will play hawk on day 2. Therefore, you will play hawk on day 2. Yash knows that you are a maximizer. So therefore, you will play hawk on day 1. So Yash will also again play hawk on day 1. And you will be stuck in 2-2. Whether it is 2 stage, whether it is 3 stage, whether it is 4 stage, whether it is 10 stage. Where you will be able to backward induct, and you will, from day 1 to day n, you will still be stuck in that 2-2. But if these are infinite round games, if these are infinite games, you will still be able to cooperate, because what happens when you, let's say what happens when you start on a cooperative note and one day one of the player defects. Okay, so let's say hypothetically you both started day 1 2.5, day 2 2.5, day 3 2.5, day 4 Yash decided to defect. Okay, so day 4 Yash gets a 5, you get a 0. All right, and day 5 you will defect, Yash will defect, and from there until infinity you both will be stuck in defect, right? Now, on that long time horizon, that extra 5 apples that Yash has earned, on that long time horizon, those will not make much of a difference, right? So it is sensible then for Yash to not go for that extra 5, because that's almost like, just peanuts. It's nothing in the long time horizon. While 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 over an infinite amount of time is much greater than 2 to 2 to over an infinite amount of time, right? Every day you are getting something extra. And with infinite games, you don't have any option of backward induction as well. Okay, so cooperation can come in infinite games, and this is what you also see amongst countries where, France and England, they were the worst of enemies much throughout the medieval period. Okay, comes the Industrial Revolution, World War I, World War II. Thereafter, France and England, they typically stick together. Because earlier there was this notion that in France that they can destroy the English Empire, in England that they can destroy the French Empire. They were not in infinite games. They were in a game where one party could destroy the other party. That entity could cease to exist. But now you're in a game, let's say if you're in a game where you realize that, no, we have to live with this person just forever. There's no end game over here. We are in it forever. And that's when you start thinking that, okay, there's no point sticking to 2 to 2 to 2 when we can stick to 2.5 if we are in an infinite game, right? So the first strategy was the carrot and stick strategy. The second strategy is infinite games. Now, let me also tell you, I'll give you two examples that you might ask that, Arpit, infinite games are extremely rare. What can we do? Okay. One is that we can create a sense of infinity for sure. A lot of times, even people are not so calculative, and a lot of times, even when you split that game into multiple rounds, okay, you can still achieve some cooperation. And I will give you one military example, one sustainability example to understand this. So let's say the military example is, there is this land which is the disputed territory. There is a line of control over here, and there is an army on either side of the line of control. Okay, there's an army over here, there's an army over here. All right. Now, how does de-escalation happen in the real world? When there is a de-escalation exercise, both the armies, they don't withdraw just in one go. Okay, they withdraw in phases. Why does that happen? Let's say this army, both the armies withdrew 1 kilometer. Okay. Now, if this army wants to cheat, and because this has withdrawn, this army wants to just rush all the way and occupy even the area that has been ceded by this army. Okay. So when they are rushing back, this army can also rush back in and re-establish the status quo, right? So just by withdrawing a little, you have the chance to reclaim if the other person is cheating, all right? But if the other person doesn't cheat, then there's already some iota of trust which is established between both these parties, right? Now, we ask them to withdraw, just a second. We asked them to withdraw 1 kilometer each. Okay, this was the line of control. 1 kilometer they have withdrawn already. If the other army did not move in, okay, then there is some bit of trust. I don't move in, you don't move in. We are withdrawn 1 kilometer. Now we can withdraw another 2 kilometers. Okay. And if this army wants to move in again and capture the territory that I have withdrawn from, then it also gives me again chance to move in again and capture territory that they had withdrawn from, or at least re-establish the status quo. Okay. But if they don't move in still after withdrawing 2 kilometers, then we have more trust established. And if we do have more trust, then eventually we can completely de-escalate, completely move out. All right. So that's one. The other is breaking it down into stages in a sustainability scenario. So let's say, there's a river. There are 3 factories around the river. So, factory 1, factory 2, factory 3. All right. And all of these 3 factories, they are, sending down waste into the river to pollute it. Okay. And the government says that, hey, you know what? You need to spend 100,000 rupees or, whatever, 10 lakh rupees to set up a waste treatment plant. And if you don't set up a waste treatment plant, it's illegal. Okay. But let's say I am the owner of this factory and I start thinking that what if I have to spend 10 lakh rupees, and what if I do spend 10 lakh rupees, but the others, they don't comply. The others, they bribe the officer. I follow the law. I will end up spending 10 lakh rupees, which means that I will have fewer profits, or the cost of my production goes up. Okay. So I am uncompetitive in the market. Both of them have bribed the officer. They are still, dumping all of that waste into the river. And I would have spent that money. I'm weaker in the market. The river is still polluted. Doesn't make sense for me. Okay. The same is the mentality for factory 2. The same is the mentality for factory 3. But let's say we break this down a little. We break this down into 3 phases. The government says that first of all, what you need to do is just create a space. Don't spend anything. Show us a space wherein you will install that waste treatment plant. The inspector will come. Factory 1 will see there is a space, tick. He'll go to factory 2. Factory 2, they're going to tell that factory 1 has set up a space for the waste treatment plant. Have you done that as well? Let's say factory 2 says that, okay, doesn't cost us anything. We have right now in phase 1, just set up this waste treatment plant space. Inspector says, okay, tick. Goes to 3, says that 1 and 2 have set up a space. Have you set up a space? 3 says, okay, 1 and 2 have set up a space. Give me a couple of days. I'll set up a space as well. 3 sets up a space, tick. Okay. All 3 of them will be informed that, hey, phase 1 is complete. All of you have set up a space. Okay. Now there's some trust between all of these 3 factories that, hey, the other person is serious about setting up a waste treatment plant. Okay, so it's not as if they're just going to dupe me. Now, phase 2, some minimal expenditure. Phase 2, let's say, just says that you have to make a minimal expenditure to install some pipes, some fittings, etc., etc. And the inspector will come on a specified date, 2 months from now, goes to factory 1, says, do you have those pipes and fittings? Probably it costs just a few thousand rupees. Factory 1 says, yes, we have it. Factory 2, because factory 1 will say we have it because factory 1 knows that the others are serious in investing. It goes to factory 2, tells that, hey, factory 1 has it. Do you have the pipes and fittings? And maybe factory 2 would say that, okay, they were serious, so I'll also get it. Give me a couple of days, I'll get it. Factory 2 gets it. Okay. Now goes to factory 3, says factory 1 and 2 have it. Do you have it? And factory 3 says, okay, give me a couple of days. I'll buy it as well. All right. Or factory 3 already knows that, you know, they had kept some space, which means they were serious. So they'll do it still. All right. And then gradually you increase the number of, the amount of investment. And one day, let's say a 3rd phase or 4th phase, you would have to show the whole of the waste treatment plant. Okay, so you would have to make all of that investment eventually. And 1 would do it because it's seeing 2 making gradual investments towards it and 3 making gradual investments towards it. 2 will do it because it's also saying 1 and 3 making gradual investments towards it, and 3 will also do it because it's seeing 1 and 2 making gradual investments towards it. So if you get people to agree to cooperate with minimal cost, let them do something which is not costly to them in the first move, okay, in the first stage, and then show the others that, okay, they have taken a step. So that's why in international negotiations, a lot of times you will just see that in the first round of negotiations, you just gain commitments from all of the parties. Okay, just no action, just words, just commitments. Okay, in the second, maybe some minimal action. In the third, maybe a little more action. And that's how you create that sort of an environment of trust where everybody thinks that everybody is serious, so they keep investing towards that. Okay, so even by breaking things down and taking things slowly, you can bring about some cooperation. All right. How are we doing on time? Do we have time, or we started at 12, right? Anybody can tell me what time it is right now in India?
It's going to be 1:20, Arpit. You need not worry about the time. Don't worry.
Perfect, perfect. So we have about 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. So 2 strategies, either break it down into stages or, carrots and sticks. A 3rd strategy is also available to us. Okay. The third strategy is the institutional strategy. Okay. And to explain to you the institutional strategy, I will show you a slightly different game, which looks like this. Okay. Let's say there is a pond, a pool of water, body of water, and it has 100 fishes in it. There are 5 households surrounding the pond. Let us assume that all 5 households, they only survive on fish. They have equal amount of, hunger, almost equal amount of hunger every day. Okay. And let us say that this fish has, a regenerative capacity. So they can reproduce at a particular rate. So if you overfish, then you would have disturbed their gender or sexual balance, and they would not be able to reproduce and jump back to that population level so quickly. Okay, so let's say they can only fish 50 fishes in a week together, and the moment it crosses that 50 ka threshold, okay, the population of the fishes, it gets destabilized, and one fine day you have 0 fishes in the pond. But if you only fish 50, you don't go more than 50, then let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then again on Monday, the fishes are able to regenerate and you have 100 again. Okay, this is the setting. All right. Most of our resources, such as water, such as biodiversity, which have a regenerative cycle. Okay. This game applies to that. All right. And over here, there is no one household that can impose, that is bigger than the other. There's no government. There's no superordinate government over here. Just like the world, wherein, in the world, they say that it is an anarchy because there's no world police. Okay. Each nation is theoretically equal. There is no, like, UN cannot really impose anything upon you. And a lot of people think that, okay, if the UN cannot impose their decisions, then what good is the UN? Right? What is the use of having a UN? And let me tell you what is the use over here. So let's say this is the setting. And in the absence of a UN, in the absence of an institution, what happens is that, let's say this household 1 over here, every household, the ideal solution is there are 5 households, they can get 50 fishes in a week. Every household just decides to take out 10 each in a week. All right, that's the optimal solution. All right, but maybe one household says that, okay, this week I have a few guests at home, so let me just take out 11 fishes. Okay. They think maybe there's a buffer, maybe we can push it a little. 50 is what the government is telling us, but there should be a buffer. So if I push it a little, right, and let's say another household has a few guests over and they also think that, okay, it's not going to hurt, let me just go draw out that extra 1 fish, not going to change anything, right? And let's say both these households, they draw out 12 fishes in a week, and the total fish in the pond goes down to 48, or sorry, not 48, 46, and the population balance gets destabilized. Next Monday, you have no fishes. Okay, can easily happen. It happens in terms of groundwater every time. I belong to a city originally called Firozabad, which is known for having the maximum per capita number of diggings and borings to withdraw water from underground. And the government would keep on telling you that the city would run out of water if you're putting those pumps in, but people would say that maybe others will stop. I will keep on doing it, and me drawing out a little bit of water is not going to hurt. And at one point of time, one fine day, you'll realize that you've run out of water, you've run out of underwater. Then you'll start digging in a little more, and then you start digging in a little more, until one day you actually just run out of water. Okay, what do you do in such a case? So let's say you create, you have this sort of an innovation. You create a wooden platform over here. You create a plank over here. Okay. And you create a rule that you cannot just fish from anywhere. You can't come here. You can't come here and fish. That's all illegal. You always come to this wooden platform and you sit here, and this is where you need to put your fishing nets in. This is where you will fish, everybody. So you set up certain rules of the game. All right. And then what you do is that you get a person either from a nearby village, or you get one representative from each of the household to sit here as a monitor. Okay. And then what this monitor does, it could be a body of people from each household, or it could be one person from a neighboring village. That's your choice. And they put up a whiteboard over here. Now everybody has to fish from here. And there is a whiteboard over here on which you will record how much has each person fished, how much has each household fished in this particular week. So let's say household 1 comes in and fishes 10 fishes this week. Household 2 comes in, let's say household 2 says, I'm going to fish 11 because I'm just feeling lucky today, okay, or I have some guests over today. So household 3 is going to be like, okay, you have overfished this time. So this week, okay, maybe I'll just take out 9. And then household 4 comes in, takes out 10. 5 comes in, takes out 10. All right. So now this guy, this 4th household, it took out 9, this took out 11. So they can bargain with each other that next round, maybe, sorry, next week, maybe this household can give this household 1 fish from their own pool. All right. So you can establish that bargaining. What if one household, this particular household, just fishes 11 many weeks at a time and doesn't give this household anything? This is gone rogue. Okay. So the others can come together and put pressure on this household to pay this person and not overfish every week. So this becomes a self-governing sort of a system. How? By just making information available to everybody. So that's the reason why. So there are 2 things that institutions are doing over here. Number 1 is that they are setting some ground rules, and B, they are bridging information asymmetry. So that's the reason why you see the UN, the World Bank, all of these multilateral institutions just writing so many reports. Like a lot of people say that, these institutions, what do? They just keep writing reports, right? They really don't do anything. But the idea over here is that you set up certain norms, you set up certain rules of the game, and then as transparently as possible report on how each person is doing. You must have seen the ease of doing business ranking from the World Bank. By the way, it's defunct now, but that's the reason why you see so many of these institutions just doing all of this reporting on various parameters. And see how this system doesn't need a police. You can self-govern, you can barter, you can trade amongst each other, you can put pressures on each other. There's no global police which is the boss of all of these households. You're just creating some rules, you're reporting them properly. Okay. Now, it's entirely possible for this person who's playing the monitor, or this group that's playing the monitor, to become corrupt. Okay. And or the group to become inefficient. Maybe they don't know their calculations well, they don't report it properly because of certain errors in their talent, in their judgment, or because they are corrupt. And if that happens, the whole system will come down. Okay, because sometimes, they'll just allow, okay, 12 fishes in a week. They'll probably, not tell the others, and one day fishes will be gone. And that's the reason why in COVID, when people started doubting the WHO came rushing in to safeguard their reputation, because their reputation, both in terms of their competence and in terms of their character, it matters a lot. The moment you don't have that reputation, the system will not work. Okay. Also, you only need to have one of these institutions. The moment you have two institutions telling two things, the system is not going to work. Right? Because some misinformation will lead you to overfish. So that's the institutional mechanism of bringing cooperation. So we've gotten 3 mechanisms until now. All right. One is carrots and sticks, the robot automaton one. The second one is multi-stage games. The third one is these institutions. All right. And we have now a fourth, which is going to be the last one. And that's where we will finish our discussion for today. For the fourth one, we would need to play another game. This is a new game. Let me just tell you, this fourth one is making cooperation really, really lucrative. Just make it super lucrative. Okay. I need, again, 2 volunteers to play this game. This is where we will end it. Shivika, do you want to be one of the volunteers over here?
Okay, we'll do that then.
All right. Need one more. Shrishti, since you are here, do you want to play this?
Always up for it, Arpit. Thank you.
All right. So Shrishti and Shivika, you both are going to play this game, and one of you has to be Ronald, one of you has to be Donald. Okay. Remember our good old Donald, he is not in office anymore. Okay. So Shivika, I'll let you pick. You want to be Ronald or you want to be Donald?
Okay, Donald is fine. Yeah. I guess.
Okay. All right. So Shivika is Donald over here. Shrishti is Ronald over here. All right. And you both are people who have an income. You have, you are reasonably wealthy people in this game, and you both owe some tax to the government every year. All right. Okay. So whenever you see unit of energy, just think of it in terms of dollars or rupees. Okay. All right. So you both owe some taxes every year. And what's going to happen is you both pool those taxes. That's what the government does, that it will collect taxes from everybody. It pools it and it invests those taxes into a public good. Okay. Public goods are goods which are non-rival. They are non-excludable, which means that my consumption doesn't eat into your consumption, and you pay for it, you get it. You don't pay for it, you still get it. So things like, clean air. Okay, if I'm breathing clean air, it doesn't eat into your clean air that you breathe. So my consumption doesn't eat into your consumption, and I pay for clean air, I get it. I don't pay for clean air, I still get it, right? National defense is also another thing. Like if you don't pay your taxes, it's not as if the army is going to tell you we are not going to secure you in the event of a war, right? You pay for it, you get it. Don't pay for it, you still get it. And your consumption of the army's security does not eat into my consumption of the army's security, okay? So it's a public good. So let's say, and also one feature of public goods is that when you invest in public goods, you get disproportionate returns. Okay. So essentially, 10 people don't have to pay the money to hire 10 army men. Okay. Even 2 people can invest sufficient amount. And so there's a positive return. So let's say I take $1 from each of you, from Shrishti and Shivika, and I pool in $2. Let's say our rate of return is 1.5. So this year, we get a benefit of $3. Okay, so 2 into 1.53, and since it is a public good, it gets equally distributed amongst both of you. So you get 1.5, Shrishti, and you get 1.5 over here, Shivika. All right, it's a good deal. You invested $1 and you eventually got 1.5. Not a bad idea after all. This collecting taxes, investing in public good seems to work out well. But that is when you both cooperate. But how about a situation where Donald just becomes Donald? Donald plays Donald, and Donald decides, I'm going to hold on to $1 of mine. I'm not going to pay my taxes. Let's just let Shrishti do it. Let's just let Ronald do it. All right. And what happens is that, okay, so now the government has just $1 of resources to get invested in public goods. The return on investment is still okay. So $1.5 you invest, and $1.5 is your total benefit. Since it's a public good, it still gets divided equally between both, between Donald and Ronald, right? It's a public good. So let's say it's clean air. Shivika is still breathing it. Shrishti is still breathing it. Shivika, you still have your $1, and now you have this 1.5's half, which is 0.75 as well with you. So you end up with 1.75, and Shrishti ends up with 0.75, right?
Yes.
Not a good deal for Shrishti.
Not at all.
Investing $1, getting 0.75, and look at you. You are not doing quite bad yourself. Didn't invest anything, got 1.75. Okay.
Yes.
So that's scenario 2, where Shrishti plays the dove and you play the hawk. Okay. Scenario 3 could be just the flip of it, that Shrishti decides, I'm not going to give my $1, you give your $1, and you get 0.75, Shrishti gets 1.75. Okay.
Yes.
Scenario 4 could be you both play hawk. You both decide to just keep your $1 to yourself, not invest anything. So you have 0 units, 0 gets divided. So you are ending up with just the 1 that you had. Okay. Now, this is your regular situation where the Nash equilibrium is defect, because the best strategy for both of you is that you defect, right? Because you would not want to go from 1 to 0.75. Shrishti would not want to unilaterally change from defect to cooperate and go from 1 to 0.75. Okay. So this is the Nash equilibrium when you have 1.5 times the returns. Okay. Let's say I change the returns, I increase the return. This is not return to scale, that is written in error. This is the return to investment. Okay. So I change the return to 2.5. All right. So you both, let's say scenario 1 is cooperative. You both give your $1 each. You have $2 kitty. You invested, multiply by 2.5. You have total $5 of benefit. Gets divided equally. 2.5, 2.5. Great deal. Invest $1, get 2.5. Nothing better than that. All right.
Yes.
But let's say you're being Donald and you don't invest, and Shrishti still invests, and you have a total kitty of just $1, invest it into 2.5. So 2.5 is the total benefit. 1.25, 1.25 to each one of you. So you, Shivika, get 1 plus 1.25, 1 that you did not invest, so 2.25, and Shrishti gets 1.25. Okay. So Shrishti is still better off. Okay, invest $1, gets 1.25, and you are having a party over here. You invest nothing, you get 2.25. Okay. The flip case could also be true, that Shrishti doesn't invest, you invest, and you get 1.25, Shrishti gets 2.25. Okay. And you both could also defect, that you just hold on to your $1, invest nothing. Okay, so this is it. Now, in this setting, if you notice closely, defect is not a Nash equilibrium, because if you are here, you have incentive from moving from 1 to 1.25. Shrishti has an incentive to move from 1.1 to 1.25. Okay. And both of you, because even if you are just cooperating and Shrishti is defecting, you're still fine. Right? Because cooperating is better than defecting. And Shrishti would also realize that, hey, if we are in this scenario, I'm earning 2.25, but what if we both cooperated? We would both get 2.5, 2.5 each.
Yes.
Okay. So this becomes a Nash, because if you are here, let's say this is where you started, you would not, nobody would change their strategy. You would not want to move from cooperate to defect, move from 2.5 to 2.25. 2.5 is better. Shrishti doesn't want to move from 2.5 to 2.25 because 2.5 is better. This is the Nash over here. What's the difference between these two? The rate of return.
Yes.
Over here, cooperation is really, really lucrative.
Yes. Okay.
Right? And that's a fourth strategy, that you make cooperation really, really lucrative. And when I say really, you need to make it so lucrative that even if I am cooperating and the other person is defecting, I should be better off than when I would be if both of us were defecting. Okay, you create a game like that, you have a Nash equilibrium which is 2.5, 2.5. Okay, think of space exploration over here. Okay, a country can compete with the others, or they could cooperate. Okay. Even if they are trying to be nice and they share all of the information with the others don't do that so much. Still, space exploration is giving them something, right? Frontiers which are new, frontiers which have infinite amount of resources or wealth that you could look at, they see such cooperation. Or investments where you have an extraordinary rate of return. Okay. If the benefit is good enough, people would cooperate. All right. That's our fourth strategy. So today we learned about 4 strategies. Number 1, carrot and sticks. Number 2, break it down into stages. Number 3, institutions. Set up norms, make information transparent and available. And the 4th is this, make cooperation really, really lucrative. Okay. That's the end of our discussion today. Happy to take questions and questions. Ahmed.
Yeah, so what's the strategy in the second?
Sorry, you're getting muted.
Sorry. What's the difference between the first strategy, which is carrots and sticks, and the last one?
What's the difference between the carrot and stick strategy and this last one?
Yeah.
The difference between carrot and sticks and the last one is this, that let us look at the carrot and stick strategy. Okay. Okay, so the carrot and stick strategy was that this becomes 1, right? This becomes 1, right? Are you with me, Emma?
Yeah.
Now, what is the order of preferences for any given player? Okay, so let's say Shivani is the player over here. Order of preferences, Shivani would prefer that the best outcome is for Shivani over here is CC. Okay. The second best outcome for Shivani over here is DD. The third best outcome for Shivani over here is DC, which is equal to CD for Shivani over here. Right? This is the structure of her preferences. With me, Ahmed, on this?
Yes, go on.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, even if I made this -1 over here, when I make this -1 over here, let's see how the preference order changes. Oops. So the best strategy over here is with -1 over here, CC. Okay. The second best strategy over here for Shivani is CD, which is equal to DC, because still getting 1, right? And the last is DD. Okay. 2 different games. And you look at the last one. Look at this one. What's the payoff over here? What's the ideal strategy for Shivani? I'm talking about the right panel over here. This is CC is the
CC, right?
The second best is CD.
CD.
Sorry, DC. Shivani plays defect and Yash plays cooperate. So DC. All right. So 2.5.
Okay.
The third best is CD. Right. And the last one is DD. Okay, so this is CC, DC, CD, DD. And over here we had done the CC, DD, DC, CD. Different games, different preferences of strategies.
Yeah, so the outcome is different.
Outcome is the same, that cooperate is the Nash equilibrium over here. 2 punishments. And even over here, cooperate becomes the Nash equilibrium because of incentives, not punishments, because of the rewards that you'll get for cooperating. The difference over here is that, in terms of the various preference sets, the difference over here is that even, unilateral cooperation is better than mutual defection. That's the key difference over here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I hope all of this, this could be, typically this is covered in many, many days. And I congratulate you guys if you've been able to follow through. I know that some of us have been able to do that, and that's a great thing. At the GPOTS fellowship, so this is the fellowship that we teach, and it's called the Global Policy, Diplomacy, and Sustainability Fellowship. We do this, we play a simulation game right after this as well, when we do it in the fellowship, and we, do a number of applications of this when we are then trying to compare healthcare systems of various countries, when we are trying to understand why certain laws are working, why certain laws are not working. And on the one hand, you'll be, as part of the fellowship, you do all of this. On the other hand, as part of the fellowship, you interact with people who are, in those real life games. So you would interact with people such as the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. You would interact, like yesterday, we had a mentor who had escaped from Belarus. So Belarus, as you would know, is a country where it's the only dictatorship in Europe. So in Belarus, she escaped from Belarus, and we were talking about her experience. She is now a German Marshall Fund Fellow, and we get judges, we get all members of parliament, ministers, Fortune 500 CEOs, sustainability experts. You can go to this website, www.gpods.org, and it's a combination where we give you workshops. Those are for skill development. And we were at the World Economic Forum. We conducted a lot of roundtable discussions with government leaders, Fortune 500 CEOs, etc., to understand what are the policies, what are the skills, what are the things that they want people to be trained in. And we found out that they said that people have to be trained in effective writing and communication. They need to be trained in things like, solving complex problems. They need to be trained in things like, how to look at things from a circular economy mindset, and how to fundraise for an organization. Those are the skills of the future. Irrespective of the industry that you're in, you will have to fundraise. You will have to know how to write effectively. And at GPods, we do all of those workshops. We give you a battery of case studies to help you with complex problem solving. We get, the top sustainability experts from UNEP, from UNFCCC, etc., to talk to you about, how can you think in a more circular manner. So we conduct those workshops. We conduct 3 courses. One is a comparative public administration course. That's the one that I teach. One is a course on global commons, the sustainability course. That's what Ishan teaches, who's going to be interacting with you tomorrow. And there's a diplomacy course
today, I put right after.
Oh, today, right after this. So, and a diplomacy course wherein Jonathan and Jasmine, Jasmine is from the London School of Economics, Jonathan is from Cornell University. They teach you about diplomacy. And you learn theory in these courses, skills in these workshops, and then you interact with diplomats, you interact with all of these wonderful mentors from all over the world. You learn from their real life experiences. And our fellowship applications, they are open right now. They are open. The early bird deadline is December 15th. The late application deadline is January 15th. But if you think that, you would benefit from this knowledge, these networks, once you're part of this network, this fellowship is organized by Global Policy Insights. That's a think tank in India, US, and the UK, EnviPol, and ANCSSC, which is part of the UN South-South Cooperation, United Nations South-South Cooperation Initiative. So that's the certificate you get, backed up by these 3 organizations, and you become part of these networks for life. So if you think that this is the kind of thing that would benefit you, or if you want to go for higher education later on, and you think that, these sort of folks would be helpful to you, many of them are either professors or graduates of, the top, either the Ivy League or your Stanfords, MITs, or your Oxford, Cambridge institutes from all over the world, then I would encourage you to apply to this fellowship, and just be in touch. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can write down my email address over here. I'm also quite approachable on LinkedIn. So just feel free to reach out to me anytime, and do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to take our discussions forward. And I guess over to Ishan now.
So guys, I hope you had a engaging session. What we're going to do is we're going to give you some breathing space between my session and Arpit's. We're going to be covering the economics of environmental policy, a more nuanced and holistic look at what is happening in environmental world. Now, this is very contextual because COP26 is happening, international negotiations are happening, And all of us at some point have said, why is this not leading to substantive change? We've been cribbing about this, we've been reading about this, we've been talking about this. We're going to be looking at how environmental policy is not a one-stop shop and a one-size-fits-all sort of a solution. And during the course, we're going to be covering aspects of ethics, aspects of environmental science or attribution science. We're going to be covering aspects of environmental law at a very basic level, and then finally aspects of application of environmental policy. So that's what we have in store for you. We'll play a short video during which please get yourself a glass of water, stretch your legs, and a cup of coffee if you need. And we'll be continuing this right after the video. So stay tuned. This video is about the GPARTS Fellowship, so all of your queries are intended to be answered through this. I just want to add one little nuance to what Arpit said. Outside of this, very prestigious certificate that you get in all of these things, and these mentors from the global leaders who come on as mentors, you also get speaking opportunities, which is something that our fellows have made use of in the last so many cohorts. Our fellows have spoken at the New York Climate Week. Our fellows have spoken at the London Climate Action Week. They've spoken at the United Nations Urban October events as panelists. So the spotlight is on the fellows. If you think this is something that helps you, please do feel free to reach out to us. All right, short video, and then we're back in 2 minutes.
This is a place where you are not really a student, we are not really teachers, we are all coming together in a community of fellowship, and that's the reason why we call it a fellowship, where we think that everybody makes knowledge or builds knowledge based on the ideas that they already have in their mind.
Problem is greenhouse gas emissions that affect the temperature of the climate.
You have to go back to the basics each time you feel you run into an ambiguous situation. And that's where things like critical thinking and problem solving and root cause problem solving comes in. It's, for example, starts with defining first what the problem is rather than getting into solving the problem.
We're seeing the limits of the multilateral system as it was conceived 75 years ago being reached. And you see a big fight going on many levels, including these disarmament affairs. On, let's say, I always say it's basically 3 levels that we see fights going on here in the UN, including on disarmament affairs. The first is on language, the second is on money, and the third one is on positions.
Companies like Microsoft is a good example that have committed even not just to become net zero, but they want to sort of offset their historic emissions as well. So it was an incredibly ambitious target, and that's good. We want that ambition. We want that awareness.
Policy making body on environment at the same level with the General Assembly for all other issues globally. But for environment, it established the United Nations Environment Assembly.
IOI, or impact on investment. So that's essentially what this, your management really should all be about. You're trying to maximize the impact on investment.
The fact that the G7 came together and pledged an additional 1 billion doses of the COVID vaccine next year on top of the 1 billion that's already been promised. This is important. Of course, there's been criticism saying that's not enough. Well, of course it's not enough. But still, that's 1 billion.
You might define it as coordinated and synchronized action that often deliberately targets democratic states.
As in international relations and diplomacy, it often is very important, to be heard. to be able to state your case and your position. Whether you get it in the end is a different story, but in order, you have to be transparent, you have to be inclusive, and that was something that Copenhagen was not. As you perhaps know, there were like backdoor negotiations, but Paris was very, very open, very inclusive.
Every year I went to the NASCAR annual conference. Fantastic. You met people who were thinking out of the line, out of the box. It's not a small box, but a huge box. It shows that Egypt has the capacity to develop a global industry that can service the whole world, the whole corporate world.
New technologies are emerging and being developed at a faster pace than ever. So I do think that we are going to need to do a kind of a bigger job than we are doing today in a way to get new kinds of arms control in a broad sense. To work on, to discuss about the role of these.
Science of attribution, of being able to say, has changed so much that now you are able to look at the probability of events happening and the link to climate change, the link to fossil fuels. We're seeing incredible things happening in ports these days.
GPODs has helped us build such a rich network of professionals who are truly global and are actually working at the cutting edge of solving some real policy problems.
The ability of GPODs to actually stimulate us intellectually is what best qualifies and characterizes it. And I feel personally, for me, it has really broadened my horizons.
So grateful to have had this opportunity over the last 3 months to get to know you all and also just have such incredible mentorship and intellectual stimulation. Coming out of grad school, I think I was really lacking that in my life, and to be able to have such dynamic conversations.
I would like to look at a case study of Cambodia in Thailand. In Thailand, in 2018, the government actually set aside a social security program that also provides an health security for the 1/5% of the urban poor, and it is called National Health Equity Program. And in this equity program, it comes with two facets. Number one, it's helped to guarantee the health security of the people of the 1/5% of urban poor and the poorest of the poor in the country, and also help to empower the hospitals and the district hospitals with equipment, with facilities that could aid them in attending to the urban poor.
As I said, Venezuelan migrant women, and they are caught in between a situation where their original healthcare system of their home country is not adequate to meet the needs and expectations of COVID-19. So they historically have been migrants to neighboring countries such as Colombia, but because of the restrictions on equal access to healthcare as well as other universal human rights in Colombia, it becomes a precarious situation for these migrant women who are looking for safe jobs, who are trying to avoid gender-based violence, which unfortunately is very frequently occurring over there, on top of not having that healthcare access, and are actually, in most cases, forced to return home to Venezuela. And during this pandemic, it's not good. In general,
it was an amazing experience, because I would say I've come from a totally quantitative background, and this program has given my mind some great wings, because I've met mentors from different walks of life and transcending many different avenues of human endeavor. So in that sense, I would say it's total diversification, and very, very thankful to GPODs and to the fellow mates.
All right, thank you, Sushti, and welcome back, everyone. I hope that you've got your cups of coffee and glasses of water, hopefully. We're going to be discussing, as I mentioned, a bunch of things, but majorly the economics of environmental law, economics of environmental policy. I could have various topics as the heading for this discussion because we cover so many of the things that that we will be covering. Now, to begin off, a couple of things about me. I am by qualification an environmental lawyer. I hold a master's in environmental law with a major in energy policy from Stanford Law School. I have worked with the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, United Nations headquarters in the past. I came back to India a few years back. I also teach. I am the assistant dean of a private university in India. Now, things that you should know about the next 1.5 hours. One is that the more we interact, the better it is. It is not supposed to be a monologue. I have interspersed the whole session with questions that do not require the right answers. They require for you to think about what I'm asking. So that's one. Secondly, we do this very often. We take lectures very often, and we're very bored of looking at our own faces. So if you could keep your videos on, that will be very, very helpful as well. It makes the session a lot more interactive. That's also networking 101, by the way, for the person to remember your face. The second thing, and the only rule that I have for this, is consider this a safe space as long as you're not hurtful to anyone. Please share your opinions about any of the things that you like, dislike, any of the politics or policies that we consider during the course of the session. Finally, at GPODs and for the purposes of this lecture, I do not presume knowledge on anything from all of you, because of which we'll be starting from ground zero and quite literally starting from what is environment to get into environmental policy. Over the course of 3 months of the GPODs fellowship, we start at the very basic level, and by the end of it, you're studying risk modeling. But over here, we'll be giving you a snippet on how policy works. Finally, these are my views. And as I said, that I am an environmental lawyer and a lawyer nonetheless, so disclaimers abound. My views not of any of the organizations I represent. We'll be covering bits and pieces of various topics, so I'd require your patience and your engagement over the next 90 minutes or so. One other thing that I haven't mentioned on the slide, but I like to mention at the very beginning of these sessions, is that I am a bit of an astrophysics nerd. So you'll find a lot of references to astrophysics, to neuroscience during my session. That does not make me an expert. I'm certainly no expert. I refer to the academic journals and so on and so forth that I read. But you'll find those instances those are absolutely not required for you to understand the course of study that we are pursuing in the next 90 minutes. But on that note, let's go to the first quote and for you to understand what we will be referring to. Now, Carl Sagan was a cosmologist, he was an astrophysicist, he's called himself a science communicator, and he had this wonderful quote which states, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. Why have I put this quote here? Well, a lot of us who are interested in climate change, environment, even if it is not as a professional, I'm sure we're all affected by it. We have an opinion on it. For those of us who are professionally engaged in climate change and environment, we look at climate policy, we look at climate finance, we look at all of these nuanced fields of environment as our possible career options. But sometimes what happens in these courses that you take, you realize that you're studying towards a specific goal without understanding the basics and nuances of it. So that's why to understand climate finance, which could be your apple pie, and to construct it from scratch, you first have to construct environment, understand what environment is. And this is not your stereotypical lecture where I'll be explaining to you what this is. I will be asking you to challenge everything that is given to you, that is told you as the factum. And consider it to be the gospel truth. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to help you redefine these things. So I would seek your indulgence and engagement over the next 90 minutes, starting with this first point. When I was I was working for the Economic Commission for Europe, I had done a personal study of about 17 countries, and I had gone through the legal definition of the term environment itself, right? But remember, we're reinventing the universe here, so let's start at the very basics. I wanted to look at what is the legal definition of the term environment across jurisdictions. And when I was doing this, and when I came up with the most prominent terms used to define in various languages, the term environment, these were the most prominent terms that came to light. So there was human beings, form a part of environment, obviously. There was water, air, land, other living creatures, plants, microorganisms, property, and their interrelationship amongst each other. So environment is quite literally what you consider it to be environment. If I were to ask you, without you having looked at this definition, what is environment, you would have said that it is human beings and plants and everything around us is environment, right? I'd like to ask you if you find something missing from this legally established global definition of environment. In fact, if you look at the Environment Protection Act of India 1986 or the NGT Act, which also defines environment, you'll see that these are exactly the ingredients used in the Indian laws as well. So what obvious things are missing from what we legally consider to be environment? Any guesses, any thoughts? What do you think is obviously missing? What should have been there within the definition of environment? Anyone? So to give you an example, in the past, someone has told me that energy is missing as a concept within the definition of environment, the legal definition of environment. People have told me noise pollution is missing, which is interesting. What else do you think is missing? Is there a commonality that you think flows through all of these factors? Is there something that is very evidently missing from this definition of environment? Please feel free to raise your hands or answer by unmuting yourself. This is an interactive discussion, so no specific way to go about this. Any commonality, anything missing? All right. So I'll tell you when it struck me that something was missing from this definition. And guys, even otherwise, please feel free to unmute yourselves if you have any comment at any point of time. This is not a monologue. Okay. So in 2019, I came across this news piece from, I think it was from The Sun in London. And it said, it was about this golden asteroid, as you can see on your screen. It's called Psyche 16. Psyche 16. This asteroid is supposed to contain 8,000 quadrillion pounds worth of precious metals. And as you can see on your screen, these metals include gold, platinum, iron, nickel. Since then, there's been a news report which says that there have been diamonds found on this asteroid as well. And as you'd expect, NASA and SpaceX are planning to go explore this asteroid, and with intelligible murmurs saying that there might be space exploration in the form of mining of this asteroid later. So the question I ask is, when we mine on our planet, there are certain environment impact assessment laws that apply, environmental laws apply, mining laws apply. Would any law apply when you're mining an asteroid? The answer is no. At this point, until we have a very well-developed set of space laws, which I think we're working on, no law will apply if you want to go and mine this asteroid. Now, why is that? Because mining laws generally and major laws that impact environment fall within the definition of the term environment. So if you have a certain chemical industry being set up, it will have to go through the consents and other provisions of environmental laws because they fall within the domain of environment. If you have a certain commercial activity, construction activity being built, you will have to take compliances under environmental law and policy for establishment and operation of such projects. But the problem is that the asteroid would not require, at this point, any environmental compliance because of this very reason. Our definition of environment includes everything that is required for you and me and your colleagues and peers to survive. Our definition of environment is validating the one thing that human beings today have been agitating against, which is an anthropocentric view of the world, as opposed to an ecocentric view of the world. And those are environmental ethical approaches that I'll come to. But the point that I'm trying to make here is the common thread that I was referring to in the factors that make up environment legally around the globe and specifically in India are air. The common thread is human beings, and the factors are water, we require for our survival, air, we require for our survival, land, we require for our survival, other living creatures, we require for our survival, plants, microorganism, property, and how they interact with each other that makes up the ecosystem that we require for our survival. So that common thread is actually you and me. It's the human beings that dictate that this is required for my survival, and hence its environment. This golden asteroid, Psyche 16, is not required for our survival, and hence it does not come within the domain of environment. So the first thing we need to do is, before picking up climate finance and climate policy and environmental diplomacy and all of these eco-terrorism, all of these wonderful, nuanced fields of study, we should first understand what is the basic concept underlying these fields. And the basic concept is the challenge that needs to be put forth to the definition that is being given to us since 1986 in India, and since before that elsewhere in the world. So if we've established that everything that we're agitating towards falls flat on its face when we see that everything is driven by human beings for human beings, despite it being the definition of environment, then where does it lead us, right? Why isn't the Psyche 16 falling within the domain of environment? To explain this, let me answer preemptively a couple of questions that you're going to ask me. How does it matter if we are defining environment according to us? We are defining it, we are human beings, and it makes sense for us to define it the way we perceive it. And if our 5 senses say that you require water, air, land, microorganisms, plants, other living creatures, then that's how we'll define it. And this is where I'd like to challenge you to think outside the box. But before that, you need to answer a few questions. So I have made it very simple for all of you, and all of you are smart people, so you'll probably be able to guess it, but you don't need to have the right answers. You can just guess, and we'll play a game where we'll see how much this reflects. So what, according to you, if you had to guess, are the 5 most common elements in the universe? I've put the periodic table. That's a bit of a hint already. Which, according to you, are the 5 most common elements found in abundance in the universe? All right, Babar, let's hear from you.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
It's hydrogen, oxygen.
Yes.
And you can say copper, iron.
Okay.
And
all right. So we have hydrogen, oxygen. Copper, iron isn't one of those. That's why it's a bit of a guessing game. But let's hear from others if they're able to guess. Hydrogen, oxygen is right there. Shivani, please go ahead.
Hydrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen. Yeah.
All right, that's 5. That's exactly
magnesium.
Right. No, those are exactly right. In fact, in the right order as well. Hydrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen. The 5 most common elements in the universe. Absolutely on point. So, why am I talking about the most common elements found in the universe? Because we need to do a bit of a reality check when we want to study environment as lawyers, as policymakers, as scientists, or as finance professionals, or as business professionals for that matter. If I had to ask you the same question, but this time from another angle, which are the 4 most common elements found in the human body? What would those be? The periodic table is there for your reference again. Go ahead, Yash.
Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen.
Absolutely. Actually, this is the first time someone has been able to guess it in one go. So kudos to you, Yash. That's absolutely right. So remember what we discussed, what Shivani said at the beginning and Babar alluded to it. Hydrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, 5 most common elements in the universe. Helium is an inert gas, let's keep it aside. 4 most common elements found in human beings, as Yash said, exactly the same: hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen. Now, for those of us who think that it is human beings who should define environment, we are the ones who are controlling it, we are the ones who's facing it, it's a bit of a reality check, as I said, because eventually human beings are, or our planet for that matter, is nothing but a bit of a coincidence where all of these elements came together and took the shape of human beings. So if we're trying to define anything in a way that thinks that we are the know-it-all, be-it-all of it all, is a little problematic. But let me take this a step further. And for those of you who are sports enthusiasts, you'll probably find this a little more rewarding than my previous question. If this is the timeline of the universe, this is a regular football field, right? A soccer field. This is the regular soccer field. And if this is the timeline of the universe, with this 00 being Big Bang, and this the axis of time, when do you think human beings came into existence? So is it the left goalpost, D, midline, right goalpost, D? Where do you think human beings came into existence? Any guesses? You know, you don't have to be a sports enthusiast to be able to answer this, so take a guess. So any guesses welcome. I think we have Arnav and Yash.
Probably a meter before the goal line.
A meter before the right goal line, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, a meter before the right goal line. That's a good guess, actually. Ahmad?
Yeah, it should be around at the back of the goal, at the end line, and that white line, on that line also at the very end of that line.
Oh, so you're saying at the very edge of the right goalpost?
Yeah. No, I'm saying the whole border of the football field, right?
Yeah.
So the direction is at the end of that direction, that timeline.
Okay.
The border at the end of the court, right? That border has a line. So I'm saying that line also should be dissected into many parts in order to us to arrive where we actually are.
Okay. All right. Point taken. Let's not dwell on it. I'll come to you in a bit, Ahmed. Any other guesses? So 1 meter from the goalpost, and Ahmed has sort of dissected the last line into various lines and then tried his hand at the answer. Anyone else? When do you think human beings came into existence? This is the Big Bang. So I apologize, guys. I'm joining in from Delhi. So the right answer is human beings came to existence right at the very end, as Ahmed was suggesting. Not the reason I put a blade of grass, because I want to make a distinction here. I was once told in one of these sessions that human beings came into existence equivalent to the last blade of grass on the soccer field. And that answer is right and wrong. Because human beings did come into existence, if this is the soccer field and this is the Big Bang, not equivalent to the width of a blade of grass, which is around 1/16 of an inch, but equivalent to the thickness of the blade of a blade of grass, which is a lot lesser. So that's how recent we are in this wonderful universe that we are a part of. But again, it's a natural question to ask, why is he discussing when human beings came into existence and how similar we are to the elements of the universe? For that, the answer is, please be patient. It'll all become clearer in a bit. But the two things that we established is that we are actually a coincidence and a part of the universe, something that has existed since Big Bang, and we are equivalent to the last blade of grass in terms of its thickness. But let's take it a step further. If that is how insignificant in totality we have been, then why have we been looking at everything from a humanistic point of view? And humanistic, I do not use as a positive term. I mean from an anthropocentric point of view. And this is the time when we get into environmental ethics of it. And sometimes all of us think that, these ethical approaches are so philosophical. I don't know why it is being taught it's possibly useless, but it isn't. And I'll tell you why. The definition of the term environment is that we looked at is an anthropocentric view of the world. What is anthropocentrism? We hear this a lot. Let me clarify it for you. For your reference in future discussions, you could use this knowledge and show off as to how you know about anthropocentrism in detail. Anthropocentrism is quite literally human-centric. So anthro, the word, means human, human-like, humanoid. Centric is centric. Anthropocentrism means that we are at the center of it all. You are at the center of it all. By virtue of being a human being, everything around you is an exploitable resource. And that is why every perception of ours around us, the thing that we look at, is what environment is. An environment is an exploitative resource. That's how anthropocentrism was conceived. And that's how it's been playing out. Now, apart from small specks of indigenous communities around the globe who do not have an anthropocentric view of the world, we have always been anthropocentric as a human civilization. I'd also like to specify that you might boast that no, I'm not an anthropocentric person. I actually respect nature. I segregate my waste. I use, steel straws and I pet and feed the dogs on my streets. That does not make you an ecocentric. I just want to, without you guys hating me, but let me burst a little bubble. Every ancestor that you've had, cumulatively, all of them put together have had a lower carbon footprint than what you have had in the 20-25 years of your life, right? So if you claim yourself to be an ecocentric person who cares for the environment, let's hold our horses and burst our bubbles and realize that we have the most carbon footprint we've ever had. And let me also tell you one thing. This is a bit of a side note because of the COP26 in our background. We saw what national leaders from across the globe said, and how certain developed nations should have more responsibility because they've polluted. Let me also tell you something that might be useful to drive that conversation and understand that conversation. 85% of all climate impact that's happening to us today has been caused since World War II. Since the 1940s, 85% of all climate change impact. So while we think industrialization or industrial revolution 350 years back was the tipping scale, and it probably was tipping point, but the real damage has been done in the last 70 years. 50% of it was done since in the past 3 decades, so around early, late 80s is since when 50% of all climate change impact has been caused. So, anthropocentrism. Sorry about the digression, you'll get used to it in the next 19 minutes. All right, so if anthropocentrism is the way it is, I want to sort of include you guys in a discussion that is admittedly a very controversial discussion, but gets you to think. If anthropocentrism is utilization or exploitation, depending on which side of the fence you are, resources around you, then is meat eating anthropocentric or not? In the past, a lot of folks have evaded this question because it is a controversial question for obvious reasons, especially given our political climate. But I just want to see an academic view here. What are your views? Do you think vegetarianism is non-anthropocentric or ecocentric? Do you think meat eating is the wrong thing to do and it's anthropocentric in nature because you're treating other animals as a resource? What do you guys think? Where do you guys stand? Any opinions?
May I, sir?
Yes, please go ahead. Sir is too much. Too much. Ishan is just fine.
All right, thank you, Ishan. I think if we say that meat eating is in fact anthropocentric, then agriculture will also fall into that category, I think. So because you are using the land resources and you are cultivating. So this argument of vegetarianism or even veganism for that matter, because we have vegan products which are coming from the environment itself. So I don't think that it is, and both of them should be anthropocentric in that sense.
Yeah, either both or none is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sajal, can I ask you one thing? I forgot to mention this. Whoever has an opinion or is expressing an opinion, could they let us know if they're vegetarian or not?
Yeah, I am a vegetarian, but I but I don't mind eating meat. I mean, I think that everyone should be
have a choice.
Yeah, should have a choice. I personally, because since I grew up as a vegetarian, I have taste buds for that. Right. But I do try different kinds of meats also.
Yeah,
so that maybe I can find some taste that I like.
All right, interesting. So subtle things that if you're putting meat eating as an anthropocentric activity, then agriculture, by that logic, because land is also a part of environment, or plants are a part of environment, should also be considered anthropocentric, or you don't consider either of them. Any views? Meat eating, vegetarianism? Go ahead, guys.
I think I'd agree with Sajjal's logic, and I'll go on to state that any activity per se, if undertaken by a human being, it's anthropocentric. Because, see, even if you eat meat or you don't, right, there is an element of the environment involved in any form of consumption, right?
Okay.
So the question then becomes is whether that kind of consumption sustainable or not, right?
Okay.
And that question in itself is anthropocentric, because why do we want to sustain it, right? So again, I mean, you could dabble into it like deeper. For example, there are certain species which wouldn't be alive if they weren't eaten by human beings.
Right, exactly.
So meat eating or not is rather a barrier we create to create some kind of a distinction between vegetarians and non-vegetarians or vegans.
All
It
right.
doesn't really make sense in this.
All right. A very nuanced yet diplomatic answer, Arnav. I'm assuming you have your interest in IR at some point, international relations going forward. If not, then you should certainly explore it. Yash?
Yeah, I basically agree with Arnav. Also, there is also how he explains it better, because there is a certain caveat, because just the concept of eating itself is something that everything in the environment is involved in the process at some point of time or the other, right? The concept of when you introduce it for at the rates of consumption and the unsustainable levels that we are reaching at it now, that's where it starts to become a more of an anthropocentric dialogue, whereas just the concept of eating food for survival is extremely ecocentric.
All right. Okay. Let's hear from Ahmed as well. Ahmed, you had some views?
Yeah, exactly. I'm agreeing with both the parties that speak for me. It's not the intention. The question is not about the intention, the purity of the intention of the individual, but I think the question should go to the industrial footprint that we leave, or the fair distribution of the product.
So I think what Ahmed is saying, and Ahmed, correct me if I'm wrong, it is also about, and this also sort of tangentially touches upon what Arnav was saying, a sustainable process adopted in cultivation of, animal husbandry could be an example, would be ecocentric, as opposed to indiscriminate usage of land or other resources for meat eating, right?
Yeah.
All right. Guys, I'm very impressed. These are very nuanced views. I think I should have started with the slide. You guys do not need the first few slides. All right. If that is the case, let me tell you a little story. For those of you who are sustainability enthusiasts, you'll probably you've heard, or over the next 30, 40 years, you'll hear about the golden age of sustainability. But what was the golden age of sustainability and where did it start is a puzzle, the clues to which are on your screen. So you have to guess what decade this is and what city this is. And there are enough hints, guys. Please don't tell me that you've given anything and we're supposed to guess. There are enough hints in the photos. What is the decade and which city are these photos from? Now, you're not expected to know this, but you're expected to be able to guess it. Who wants to take a guess?
So due to black and white picture, it seems more like Delhi due to pollution.
Yeah, this is not Delhi, absolutely.
Feels like New York.
New York, sometime in the 70s.
Okay, so 70s is the right guess, but it's not New York. Any other guesses as to the city? Anyone? It's a guess, guys. You don't have to get it right.
Chicago?
No, you've got the wrong coast. It's actually Los Angeles, LA, and it's late 1960s, right? Why have I put these photos here? Is because as environmentalists, as environmental academics, we talk of the late 60s, early 70s, late 70s as the golden age of environment. You'll see this in a lot of literature. 1972 was the Stockholm Conference for Human Environment. You know, that set the ball rolling. Our then Prime Minister gave a very, very conscious speech on what environment should be. Stockholm also sort of got the ball rolling in India. So 1974 was the Water Act, 1981 was the Air Act, 1986 was the Environment Protection Act. Elsewhere in the world, so many things happen, but let's go to the root of it. 1960s LA, the smog was very similar to the current smog of Delhi or Beijing, as you can see on your screens. And people had to wear these masks to step out into the open. It is said that on a good day of smog, you could not see beyond 3 meters. Children were, it was feared that children are being born with bronchitis, eczema, asthma, all of these diseases because of the pollution. That is how bad the situation was. Now, people woke up to this and people said that we have to do something about this. This is not livable anymore. And you've seen how they've transformed LA. You've seen in the latest photos, or if you've been there. The point is that that was a tipping point in human history, at least the most recent tipping point in human history, when people got together and people said, we have to do something about it. And there was this humongous uproar that kids are being born with such diseases and we cannot see, and we have to wear these hideous masks, and our fashion choices as it is are bad. So what they did was they created a conversation about doing something about this, right? And with all of the motivation and cultivation of thought on environment, 1967 saw the Clean Air Act, Federal Clean Air Act in the US, at policy level, at technology level, at level of innovation. So many things came about because people were now conscious, right? People feared for their lives and their health and that of their children. So things like converters and exhaust pipes of vehicles were made compulsory, were invented and made compulsory. In fact, if any of you are, maybe I'm too old for this, but if any of you were or are Big Bang Theory fans, that series that used to come, there was a continuous joke in that series where the protagonist, Sheldon Cooper, used to remind Penny that your check engine light is on. Well, that joke wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this golden age, because check engine light, while made compulsory in 1996, found its roots from this environmental movement that we need to have a check engine light, because if the check engine is flawed, there's too much pollution, right? So many innovations in terms of policy, in terms of technology happened during this time. And I have one whole page on all the things that happened. and fructifying into obviously the Stockholm Conference, which we are so grateful for, right? These things happened in environmental policy because of which we are at the point of conversation that we are at today. However, the golden age of environment, as we refer to it, came about. Why? Because human beings feared for their life. They feared for the health of their children. The most ecocentric movement of the world came about from the most anthropocentric realism of this world. That of me, I, myself, right? So, while we credit the golden age of environment for doing so much for our environment, even the golden age had its roots in anthropocentrism. And the point I'm trying to establish is that this has been the way of life for environment since time immemorial, in fact, more so in terms of our recent history. But for those of you who are interested in policies, I have a question. And this is something that we deal with at length in the GPOTS Fellowship. We do not have the time in this short lecture, but let me give you a little snippet. See, I come up with a policy that every car should have a new technology in terms of an air filter that filters out all the pollution that happens from your car exhaust. Okay. Every such policy that is intended to change the habits or systems currently in place has an underlying and reciprocative cost. Simple example of this airbag filter in your car exhaust pipes. If it is made compulsory by our government, all of us have to shell out $200, $500, X amount of rupees to install those in our cars. So you're having a change of behavior through change of policy, but you and I have to incur a cost for it, right? You with me? In the 1960s and 70s, when they had to now adhere to these new standards that came about for air pollution, when they had to adhere to these converters that had to be put in cars and check engine lights that were inflating the cost of these vehicles, these people on your screens, these people who are driving these cars and who have these parked cars and are walking in the streets, they had to bear the cost of getting that extra converter. Standards, so industries would require more compliances. The question to ponder then is, if these folks had to bear the cost, were they the ones who caused the problem in the first place? And the answer is, this smog was a result of generations of pollution. So the benefits of generations of pollution was divided across generations. But the cost of making environmentally effective interventions in terms of technology or policy was borne by the generation that wanted to make a difference. And that's one of the most... Go ahead, Babar. All right. Completely lost my chain of thought. Yeah, so those folks who want to make that difference have to bear the cost. And this goes into the most important point in environmental diplomacy. So now we're moving from environmental ethics to environmental diplomacy. Should global north, should the developed nations bear the cost of climate rehabilitation to the global south, right? And this is guys, this might sound very theoretical, philosophical, academic, non-practical, but let me explain it to you. Let me break it down. If those good folks on your screens, these folks, had to bear all the cost of installing all of these things in their cars, and their factories have to have all of these compliances in terms of air, water, biomedical waste, solid waste, for the pollution that was caused by your forefathers and my forefathers and everything, that is technically seems unethical, right? And that's where the IR concept, environment concept of common but differentiated responsibility comes across. And this is, and trust me, since 1992, this has been the pivot of all international negotiations in the environmental sphere. Now, this concept was a big achievement back in the Rio Declaration days, because under Principle 7 of the Rio Declaration, it said that the developed countries acknowledge the responsibility that they bear in the international pursuit of sustainable development in view of the pressures their societies place on the global environment. So historical emissions, what we were referring to, generations have contributed to it, and of the technologies and financial resources they command. So there are two elements, let's divide them: culpability of the historical emissions and for the that they've derived out of this. And this benefit bit what makes it very, very complicated. And I'll tell you why. Because as soon as you say that because you're a beneficiary, you have to pay for something, people start raising their hands that, I'm not really a beneficiary, or I did not choose this life, or any of those things. So what are the two main opposing views on this international negotiation nightmare that happens at every COP, or international negotiation nightmare that happens within governments every year? The two opposing views are the communitarian and the axiological view. So let me take an example. Let's say I'll pick up someone from one of you. I'm going to pick up Vartika, for example, right? Now, let's say that Vartika, who is a peer of all of yours, a contemporary, is Vartika, if you're here, could you tell me which city are you joining us from?
I'm from Chandigarh.
All right, perfect. It's a very convenient city for this example as well. So let's say Vartika here is joining from Chandigarh, that's established. Let's say Vartika has an exact clone called Vartika ABC, right? And Vartika ABC has the same intellectual ability, same academic qualifications, same professional qualifications, same financial background, family background. In all respects, Vartika ABC is a clone of Vartika who's here with us. The only difference is that Vartika ABC was born and brought up in London, right? Or New York, any city from the global north, from the developed world. Now, let's say, unfortunately, Vartika here and Vartika ABC, because they're perfect clones, fall sick. Because of the public health infrastructure, say in London versus that of Chandigarh, Vartika ABC recovers in 1 day, and Vartika, who's joining us from Chandigarh, recovers in 2 days, right? Now, the question is, Vartika, why is Vartika ABC able to recover in a day? Or why does she have a better standard of living, a better public health infrastructure, a better community infrastructure? And that's because, as one of the arguments goes, that is simply because she's deriving the benefits of the pollution and environmental exploitation that her ancestors caused, either through colonizing one of the countries or through indiscriminately creating pollution, emitting pollution. And because they were up for industrial revolution sooner than the rest, and because they exploited natural resources, they're now reaping the benefits in terms of the financial resources they have to give a better standard of living to their citizens. So despite the fact that Vartika ABC and Vartika from Chandigarh are exactly the same in all respects, Vartika ABC either has a better standard of living or better infrastructure, or her happiness index is higher, or any of those indicators are better for Vartika ABC. So now let's apply these two views. And I promise, if you bear with me, I'll connect it to the larger picture. The communitarian view majorly rests itself on three basic ideologies. Let's take Edmund Burke. I'm sure you've heard of him, his ideology. And his ideology basically says that you cannot shrug off your nationhood. So for example, person X is a citizen of India, and person X unfortunately passes away. And 50 years later, if someone asks, what was person X's nationality, you'll say he was an Indian, right? So nationhood transcends through lifetimes, which means that the benefits that have been accrued to Vartika ABC today have transcended through to her across generations. But the problem is, similarly, the exploitative encumbrances that her forefathers back in the UK or back in the US incurred on the environment will also pass on to her. So while Vartika ABC is a beneficiary of all of those terrible things that happened to the environment 350 years back, she should have to pay Vartika from Chandigarh to make good the loss done to the environment, right? And that's the beneficiary pays principle. This is the concept on which a lot of our diplomacy is based, environmental diplomacy.
Sir, may I?
Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I was just reading certain articles, and in my previous semester as well, I had went through some papers. It stated that like if we see about the critical situation of Tuvalu Islands or Marshall Islands or Fiji, Maldives, like these are certain.
Yes.
Yeah. So, sir, it seems that due to the climate change, like what I have read in those documents is that many of the developed countries, they are responsible for this high rise in the sea levels, and it has been predicted that around by 2040 to 2050,
right,
there will be a situation where
a lot of these will be submerged. In fact, it is said about Bangladesh that there will be 65 million refugees just on account of sea level rise.
Yes, sir. And it is also said that there will be a lot of climatic refugees where the countries will have to accommodate them into their nations.
Right.
So, sir, don't you think that there should be a collective international responsibility, or even if we just impose it on some of the developed countries like USA or UK or China or many other
emitters?
The countries, so they won't take the responsibility that much in easy. So what will be the appropriate solution for these countries, even if you want to help in these dire circumstances?
So first of all, Om, it's an excellent question. Climate migrants and refugees is a separate issue altogether. In fact, it's one of the most prominent set of refugees that are going to be tens of millions in numbers in the next decade, who not recognized by the Rome Statute on the Refugee Convention, basically. So it's a very, very unfortunate instance. However, what we're trying to establish here and become clearer by the end of this discussion as to why countries are not able to agree. And I'll ask all of you a question, and Om, I'd also want to check what your answer is to that question after I've covered these points to see where you stand. Okay, so let me quickly explain this to you and then come back with a question. Or when it'll become clearer why certain countries are not able to agree. In fact, let me also specify that while we talk of the global north, so UK, Canada, US, Europe, Australia, all of these countries that have been developed and who've exploited the environment already for a long time. In today's world, the three biggest emitters are actually US, China, and India. So if you're thinking of current terms, the global north would have been us as well. But anyway, this is a historical perspective, and I'll come to the point that I'm trying to make in a bit. So the communitarian view says that the beneficiary, Valtika ABC, who just has a better standard of living by virtue of being born in the global north, on account of all of the exploitation that has happened in the past, should be held liable and should have to pay Valtika from Chandigarh, right? Eric Neumayer and Axel, sorry guys, this is Axel Gosseries, not Alex Gosseries. Axel Gosseries and Eric Neumayer have a sort of a similar suggestion. They say, and I'll give you an example. Say you're a landlord, right? Or actually, it's more plausible for you to associate with the other case. Say you're a tenant, right? And you stay with roommates. And your landlord says that give me the rent for October, right? It's November now and you have to pay the rent for October and you refuse to pay the rent. And the landlord would obviously not agree. Landlord would say that you've used this resource, you've stayed in my house, pay the rent. And you'd say that, no, I'm not going to pay the rent. And the landlord would say that this resource has been exploited by you. You've benefited from it. Pay the rent. And you'd say that I won't pay the rent. Now, Axel Gosseries says that no one should be allowed to be a free rider. And because you're deriving those benefits, you have to pay the cost. So on that logic, Valtika ABC should pay Valtika of Chandigarh the cost for the benefits that she has derived. In real terms, in today's terms, think of it this way. The global north, quite simply, should pay the global south for the exploitation that they have caused because the current generations are deriving those benefits from the years of exploitation. However, as I said, there are opposing views. So there's another view. Dr. Simon Caney is one of the proponents, the Oxford professor. He states that, in fact, that's an adaptation of his view, but it is stated that how can you hold Valtika ABC liable for the benefits that she's deriving, but she had absolutely zero control over the actions of her forefathers who were committing exploitation of natural resources or indiscriminately polluting during the industrial civilization. So if Valtika ABC had no say, had no control, not even the option of saying yes or no to her forefathers who were colonizing and cutting down forests in India and Indonesia, how could you hold her liable, claim her to be the beneficiary, and then make her pay Valtika for the climate change impact that she has caused? If you cannot connect the source of the pollution to Valtika ABC directly, how can you hold her liable? So that's the other view, axiological view. It says that no, beneficiaries had no control over it, so how can you make them pay? And the first view, as we saw, that given the fact that you are enjoying all of these benefits and you are now free riding on an NHS, National Health Service, or all of these fancy tubes that run in your city, you should be held liable and you should have to pay. Now, before I move on, I want to just have, say, 5 answers on where you stand. Anyone could tell me which side of the fence do they land on? Do you think that Vartika ABC should pay? Do you think that she shouldn't pay?
So may I?
Hi, Sajal, please go ahead. Sir is not
I'm
needed,
so
but
sorry. I keep forgetting. Yeah, I think I go with the view that she should be liable to pay. Why? The argument for this is perfectly solid. But I want to focus on the other view, which is talking about why she shouldn't, because she did not have the say in what her forefathers were doing.
Right, right.
But the idea, if you even look at the basic idea of the social contract and what is the relationship of a state with the citizen. So when she is enjoying the state regulations and whatever she is being provided with, and when she is in a setup like this argument does not make sense that I did not have a say. This is just like talking about when the woke media these days talk about I did not choose to be born. I had no say in that. So why am I supposed to go through this life? That argument, which is kind of a fallacy. So I think this is all I have to say, that this argument does not make sense in that regard, because you're already a part of this fabric.
Again, a very nuanced answer. This is a wonderful audience. Very, very happy. You also touched upon the non-identity principle that I haven't raised yet. So that's a brilliant answer. Anyone else? So Sajal lands on the conservative or communitarian view that she should have to pay. Vartika should have to pay. Right, Sajal? That's correct? Yeah. Let's go. I want to check what Vartika thinks of the liability of a clone.
Sir, if I may.
Go ahead, Arnav.
So, if you look at it from Vartika's perspective, right, even if taking in, like, if we acknowledge the fact that, yes, I mean, she's living in the first world and, she has certain benefits. And those benefits came at the expense of the other part of the world, which was exploited.
Right.
All right. Or is suffering right now. So I feel the merit of the axiological argument lies in the fact when we try to debate the extent to which she has to pay. For example, she's not directly liable, right? She did not do it on her own, right? And when she did not, she had no role to play in that aspect. That does have a mitigating factor to the extent to which she's supposed to, be compensating her clone.
Okay. Very interesting. So you're saying that she should pay, but the quantum of the payment should be lessened given the fact that she did not have any control over it.
Is it an absolute liability of sorts that she did something which, even if there was no fault of her own, she has to pay? I don't think so. And did not have any role in it. So that mitigates the fact that even if she sympathizes with her clone, I mean,
that should be good enough.
Yeah. You just can't push her to completely compensate the clone.
Okay. Very interesting. Ahmed, where do we stand?
Yeah, I think I am more towards leaning with the communitarian view, where the past aggressors are requested to pay. But I think here, when we talk about individuals like this clone, I think it should be morally liable to support a political view that demands retribution, because that's her function in the society. Because we are dealing with
we're dealing with unnatural person. We're dealing with legal personhood here. So the legal personhood and their responsibility and the rights keeps evolving and keeps ongoing in the same timeline. Even the individual keeps changing.
Very interesting. Again, more towards the Edmund Burke nationhood point of view. Interesting. Anyone else who wants to share with us that they fall on this side or the other? No? All right. So in that case, let's go back to Om's question earlier. Why don't countries come to a conclusion that, you know, certain countries who have been polluting pay? Because when, as a group of 40 odd folks here on this Zoom, we are unable to align our views, imagine state governments of 192, 193 countries coming together and then agreeing that no, you have to pay because of the beneficiary principle and because Axel Gosseries does not like free riders. So it's very, very difficult to come to this conclusion and then say that no, they should be held accountable because you would not give in. And then there's this whole iota of sovereignty that can creep into anything, and then you go throw your hands up and you say, no, I'm a sovereign and I'm not going to adhere to anything that you set as standard. So that's the big issue. But very importantly, I'm going to introduce another topic to you now that you have sort of framed your opinions about this. And this is the non-identity principle. Guys, I am an environmental lawyer, but I am very, very fascinated by the study of population ethics. If you ever have the chance to check the subject out, it's very interesting. One of the concepts of under the population ethics is the concept of non-identity principle. And Derek Parfait, who is, I mean, I'm a big fan, has published 3 volumes of these books on so many things, but he has sort of, I wouldn't say he's developed a coin, but he has improved on this aspect, what is non-identity principle. And let me give you an example. And I'm not going to dwell on it because I can talk about this for like a couple of hours. Non-identity principle through an example is this. And this is Dr. Parfait's example, interpreted by me, paraphrased by me. There is a teenage girl, say she is 14 years old, right? And she wants to get married to her boyfriend at that age. This is about a hypothetical country in his writings, and obviously it's immoral and illegal and should not be allowed. But this is an example to explain non-identity principle. Now, this 14-year-old girl wants to get married to her boyfriend, and her family and her colleagues and friends all tell her that, no, this is not right and you shouldn't do it. But she goes ahead and marries this guy. Lo and behold, in some time, she's pregnant with a baby at that tender age of 14. And even before conceiving, her family and friends had told her that, you know, do not have a baby. You're just 14. Your body would not be able to take it. But she decided what she did, and she went ahead and had a baby. So at age 15, this 14, this girl is married and has a baby. Let me put a writer out that this is absolutely wrong and illegal in our country and cannot happen. This is only for the purposes of explaining the non-identity principle, as was explained by Dr. Derek Parfait. Now, because of her physical condition and mental condition, as a 14-year-old girl, obviously she had a lot of troubles during pregnancy. And the child that was born had some inherent disabilities, which he had to continue for the rest of his life. And under the non-identity principle, the question is, can that child, and this goes back to Sajjal's point, that's why I decided to mention this, otherwise I was not going into the non-identity principle in this lecture, but can that child hold his mother accountable for bearing him at the age of 14, knowing that the probability of the child being born with physical or mental disabilities would be very high? Now, under the non-identity principle, you cannot, because irrespective of how bad the situation is, you would not have existed if that girl had waited for another 10 years. You know, it would have been some other child. It would have been a child, but it would have been some other child, not the same child. And hence, if you apply this non-identity principle to environmental policy, let's take another example. Let's say one of us, person X, was born in 1998, okay? And his parents met, they were in different cities and they came to the same city through college. Both of them took trains to that city. They met in college, they fell in love, they got married, and person X was born in 1998. Person X is an environmentalist, and he holds the government of the 1990s accountable for deforestation of a certain tract of land. Now, the timber for that that came from that deforestation was used to build railroads that connected the city where his parents met. Okay. So can he claim that deforestation as a wrong, given that he exists because that railroad was built? If that timber wasn't cut, if that forest wasn't cut, timber wasn't found, railroad wasn't built, his parents wouldn't have met, he wouldn't have existed. So he is a culmination of each of those things happening. And if he owes himself to an act, he should not hold that act to be wrong or accountable. And that's the non-identity principle. Now, guys, as I said, it's a very interesting concept. I cannot dwell on it any longer. I'm happy to answer any questions about this or share my research on this separately after this lecture. And I promise I'll share my email ID. But we have to go ahead. Any comments, very short comments on this, any clarifications that you require, I could probably devote 2 minutes. All right, let's move on then. If there's, do you guys want me to give it another 2 minutes in case you want to frame your thoughts and ask any questions?
Like, sir, my simple doubt, which has been, is like, this incident, it reminds me of the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
So butterfly flapped its wing in South America, there's a hurricane in North America. But my question is that as lawyers, when it comes to problems of this extent, how do we go on to establish some kind of a liability?
So, very good point, Arnav. One of the things that I did not mention when I was explaining Simon Caney's point of view, that how can you hold someone responsible for not doing an act, right? So how can you hold Valtika ABC responsible for what her forefathers did 350 years back? An analogy to be drawn there. Sorry, Arnav, are you saying something? So the analogy to be drawn there is, can you hold the great-grandson of a person who committed murder responsible for the murder that his great-grandfather committed, right? And that's the legal analogy. And that's my 2 cents on this. I could, this will be a very long drawn discussion if we keep on discussing this. But that's the logic there. So can you hold someone accountable for something that he did not did? By virtue of indirect connection, you could probably put this noose around his or her neck. And that's where we leave it for this. I'm happy to have this communication later, and always happy to discuss these concepts separately as well. All right. So that's non-identity principles, some food for your thought. But guys, the funny thing is that we are in this discussion that we've undertaken in the past 45 odd minutes, 50 minutes. Look at what we've covered. We've covered environmental law in terms of the legal definition. We've covered environmental ethics approaches. We've covered the evolution of the golden age of environment. We've covered anthropocentrism, ecocentrism by way of knowing anthropocentrism. And now we've covered environmental diplomacy. And we haven't even begun discussing the impacts that these things have, which is what the lecture is about. So another half an hour of patience is all that I demand of all of you. Why is it relevant to consider the beneficiary based principle? I admitted at the beginning that you might think of this as a very philosophical concept, but this is what is happening in negotiations every day. And remember what I said at the beginning. Each of your carbon footprint is greater than the cumulative carbon footprint of all of your ancestors. So 3 generations later, you are that grandfather or grandmother, the beneficiary of which is your grandson or granddaughter, and she will be having to pay for all the pollution you're causing today. And that's why it's very relevant, and that's how it turns. But anyway, there are some questions that I have put, but the most important question, the answer of which I've already put on the screen, is let's keep all of the morality, axiological, communitarian, conservative, all of these views out. Let's say that the global north says that, all right, I'm responsible. Global south says, give us money. There is no dispute as regards the ethics or morality or any of those views here. What is the one thing that's stopping global north from paying the global south under the beneficiary-based principle or the concept of CBDR, which is internationally recognized? Well, the answer is the one issue is money, right? If wishes were fishes, the world would have been an ocean. Money is the reason why the global north does not want to give that money. So if it is all about economics eventually, then let's deal with that aspect of environment. Why is cost benefit analysis so difficult whenever you're talking about climate impact, climate action and environmental policy and all of those things? Now, you might question that I'm digressing again and I'm going on to something completely unrelated to what I'm supposed to cover. But again, I ask for your patience and indulgence over the next 20 minutes and it'll all come together. We are discussing the economic impact of policies on environment, right? So the obvious question is, have you seen any of these skyscrapers? Well, to be honest, I had 3 photos and then I took this one stock image because I like symmetry and I had to put 4 on the slide. But anyway, I'll take one as an example here. This is the walkie-talkie building in London. If any of you have ever been to London, you've probably seen this building. You've also seen this bullet building, I'm sure, if you've been to London. But anyway, I'm sticking to this because I find it aesthetically curious. All these four are glass skyscrapers, by the way, as you can see, if it's not evident enough. This walkie-talkie building, however, believe it or not, was the most expensive piece of real estate in the world at one point of time, right? Now, all of us think of the Manhattan skyline, and we think of Singapore, and we think of, you know, all of these wonderful cities, and we think of glass skyscrapers, and they're aesthetically pleasing, and we want a corner office there. I just want to give you another perspective and then tie it to the economics of environmental policy. Let's take this walkie-talkie building. This was a news article in CNN a few years back. There was a car parked, a Jaguar XJ, if you will, in front of this walkie-talkie building, and the heat and the light reflected of this walkie-talkie building was so harsh that it melted the car. Not fully, but partially. You can see the side view mirror on your screen. And this is what I'm talking about. And I like the terse way in which the owner has said it's absolutely ruined. He did not give any other views. So I've put it. But anyway, so that's the kind of heat that was reflected of this walkie-talkie building. Glass skyscrapers are basically greenhouse effects in the form of a building, right? So if you're reflecting so much heat, you're absorbing a lot more heat. Something that we fail to consider. And I've put an interview, which I'm going to read out with you. This lady says, we build a glass skyscraper, then we have to cool that glass skyscraper because of the greenhouse effect, a lot of heat is trapped in. That cooling requires energy, uses energy, which contributes to the climate crisis, which increases the temperature, which means that there's more of a greenhouse effect in the glass skyscraper, which means that you need to cool it further, which means that you need more energy. And this is a vicious cycle, right? The hotter the weather makes the glass building even harder to cool, but we have to keep cooling it because sweaty co-workers are not happy co-workers, and so the cycle goes on. But if that is the case, why do we have skyscrapers in the first place, right? Now we're going from urban infrastructure to environmental policy. And I like telling you all of this because I want you to be aware of the fact that this is what the domain is now, if you want to look anything up. Why do we have skyscrapers? If you've read Yuval Noah Harari, you don't need to know this, but if you haven't read, clusters are formed, agriculture happens, people have more time, employment happens, more people flock to that place, more housing is needed. At some point, load carrying capacity of land runs out, so you keep building houses atop one another, and so skyscrapers happen. I have overly simplified this, but that's how it happens. But it calls for observation. What happens when skyscrapers happen? Let's take the example of Mumbai. Is anyone here from Bombay, from Mumbai? Please raise your hands if you are. Okay, seems like no one is, so it's a safe space to take Mumbai as an example. All right, so let's take Mumbai as an example. For those of you who are not from India, Mumbai is a major city of India, both in terms of its financial intensivity and population. Last leg of our discussion, guys, I promise. There is a certain carrying capacity of every city in terms of its environmental resources. As the prices, as the population keeps on increasing and the housing becomes more and more limited because you've run out of skies now to build skyscrapers, the valuation of that skyscraper or properties generally goes really high, right? It's a very simple limited demand, limited supply, increasing demand, valuation going up, market dynamic. When this happens, people start, and the property becomes unaffordable, as it is in South Bombay. I've lived there, I know. When it becomes unaffordable, you look for other alternatives, right? So I cannot stay in Fort in South Bombay. What will I do? Either I will go to the slums. If I don't want to go to the slums, Dharavi, I'll go to a suburb of Mumbai. That could be a Mathiran, that could be a Thane. If there's anyone here from Pune, I'm going to offend you by saying anyone from Pune. I know Pune is not a suburb of Bombay. It's a beautiful city. All right. So you end up going to these suburbs or staying in these slums. But if you do end up going to the suburbs and you're working in Mumbai, what do you need? You need transportation, because now you have to do back and forth, up and down every day from Thane to South Bombay, which is going to take some time. So you need transportation. So you need built infrastructure. Now, all three of these things require certain investment. What investment does it require? To understand that, we have to have a urban planning 101 here. FSI, floor space index, is a concept under which if your FSI is 1, basically it's the ratio of built up area versus the land you have, right? So let me give you an example. If you have 10 square meters of land, right? And your FSI is 1, then you can have a built up area of 10 square meters, simply. So your floor space index is the ratio of how much construction can you have on the piece of land, right? If your floor space index is 2 and your land is 10 square meters, then you can have 20 square meters of area, right? Built up area. If it is 3, you can have 30 square meters, so on and so forth. And the way you arrange it is absolutely on you. So if it's 20 square meters, for example, you can have 2 floors of 10 square meters. You can have 4 floors of 5 square meters. You can have 8 floors of 2.5 square meters, so on and so forth. FSI defines the height of your city. Okay. Let's have a look, a very curious look. Yeah, guys, I have this question because at some point, one of you is going to ask me, why are we studying about FSI and BCR in environmental economics? And it will become clear. So I've just preempted it and told you that, bear with me. Let's look at the vertical growth map of Indian cities. Remember, we're taking Mumbai as an example, but let's look at other cities as well. Ahmedabad, central locality is 1.2. What does it mean? If you own 10 square meters of land, you can have a built-up area of 12 square meters, right? Bengaluru is 1.75 to 3.35. Chennai is about 2. Delhi is around 1.5 in the main, in the central Delhi. Gurgaon, so on and so forth. Let's come to Mumbai now. For the island city, the South Bombay portion of Mumbai, the FSI is 1.33. What does that mean? If you own 10 square meters of land, you can have around 13 square meters of built up area. right? So guys, I don't want to confuse you guys here. So let's say that this is your land, okay? And this is 10 square meters. Actually, it'll be better if I explain with a piece of paper. This is your land, right? And if you can have, this is 10 square meters and your FSI is 1, then this is exactly the construction area that you can develop. Now you can choose to develop it by covering the whole land, or you can make 2 stories, or you can make 3 stories, 4 stories, so on and so forth, right? But 1 is your square footage into the built-up area. That's the total construction that you can have. I feel like I complicated it a lot further after that. Okay, so if 1.33 is the FSI of Mumbai, one of the biggest metros in the world, so much being talked about, Bollywood and slums and population and density and Dharavi and management systems and Dabbawalas, everything is this city. And I'm not from Mumbai, but it is what it is. It is one of the greatest cities of the world. And 1.33 is its FSI. Let's look at comparable cities around the globe. Mumbai is 1.3, Chennai is similar, Jaipur is a little more, Kolkata is a little more, Delhi a little more, Nagpur a little more, Hong Kong, which is comparable to Mumbai, is about 12, so is Chicago, New York is 15, and Singapore I cannot fit in my slides, it's around 24. So there's an answer to why this gap between Singapore and Mumbai, and that's the carrying capacity of land. But we're not going into that. We're discussing something else. Remember, we're discussing the economics of environmental policy. So a couple of questions for all of you. If 1.3 is the FSI of Mumbai, what is 49 square feet and what is 50 square feet? Sorry, what is 48 square feet and what is 50 square feet? Any guesses? What is 48 square feet? It's an obvious guess, to be honest. We're talking of Mumbai, we're talking of space constraints. 1.3 is the FSI. Any guesses?
Basically, it's more built up, like at the same area of land. So if you go multi-story, right?
Okay.
So you have more houses.
All right. It's a very good guess, Arnab, but that's not it. And actually, 48 square feet is the average floor space available per person in Mumbai. To give you an indication, 7 feet by 7 feet of a room is 49 square feet. So folks in Mumbai have lesser space than that on an average, because we take into account the slums and so on and so forth. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm digressing again, but this is just an interesting fact. In Mumbai, in slums, you have rented it by, you can rent those beds in those slums by shifts. So you share your bed with someone who has a night shift. So you sleep during the night and then you go to work during the day, and that person sleeps during the day, and you use the same flat or same space. Anyway, sorry. 48 square feet is the average space available per person in the island part of Bombay. 50 square feet is the average floor space of a prison cell in the US, to show you the dichotomy of what we're dealing with one of the greatest cities of the world.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Go ahead. Oh.
So, like what I have visualized, like what I have seen in Mumbai, is that the spaces are like less in the flats, like two rooms and 3 BHK. They are all less spacious. When in comparison, we see Delhi having much of space. And sir, I just want to understand that why is it like the Mumbai flats, like in the Goregaon or in the Virar, they have a higher cost, and even if one wants to reside as a tenant, they have to pay like 40 to 45,000 per month as rent. And we see in Delhi, we just have to pay like 35,000 for that same room, but it's much spacious in Delhi.
So that's what I'm saying. There's a larger scarcity of space in Mumbai in terms of its sprawl. But let me come to it. I'm going to address this exact thing over the next couple of slides and it'll become clearer. The point I'm trying to make is there's so much scarcity of space, to answer your question, that the prices will go up. It's basic economics, very limited supply, a humongous demand, and hence the price rise. Anyway, so let's just address your question. I completely forgot that this is a slide I'm dealing with on this. All right, limited supply, infinite demand, rents go up, slums go up. People, as I mentioned, either go to the slums or they go to Thane and Mathiran and other suburbs of Mumbai. And once you go to the suburb, what do you require? You require transportation. Now, what is the common thread amongst these three things? All three of them have major environmental impacts, right? And I'm not going to go into the detail of this. It's very difficult to come up with a valuation for the environmental impact a slum has, not just on environment, but also the socio-ecological, socio-economical needs and statuses of the residents. But let's say that you go through risk modeling and assessment matrices and you come up with a dollar figure. Let's say $5 billion for slums. Similarly, you have suburban sprawls and you see that they have major environmental impacts, and you somehow come up with the dollar figure. Say coming up with another Thane would cost us $20 billion in terms of the environmental impact it has. And then further transportation, vehicular pollution, direct impacts, indirect impacts, cumulative impacts, all of those things, say another $50 billion, right? So you have somehow a total figure of say $80 billion that you can, or any other figure, I'm hypothetically speaking, but you can still come up with a valuation for slums and transportation and suburbs. One thing that we do not consider when we're doing an economic analysis of policies that are non-environmental but have an impact of environment is exactly this. Now, the FSI policy is an urban planning policy. It's a land policy. It's not specifically an environmental policy, but look at the kind of impact it has. You can still come up with a dollar figure for all of those if you really go through the rigmarole of assessment and modeling, data analytics, and so on and so forth. But there is an unliquidated cost that we do not consider, and that's what I'm going to ask you about. But before we do that, let's look at two very important case studies. For those of us who are nerds, much like myself, you have probably seen a chessboard. If you are a bigger nerd, like I am, you've probably played a lot of chess in your life. Now, there was a study that was conducted in the US over chess tournaments, okay? And the name of the study is The Impact of Indoor Climate on Human Cognition, Evidence from Chess Tournaments, a working paper. What are the three things required as a chess player. Focus, right? You have to be very focused. Cognitive engagement, so you're mentally tuned in. And time sensitivity. And I'm not saying you're playing with your cousin and you do not have a stopwatch. In proper chess tournaments, you have a watch that you have to hit after you've made your move. So three things: cognitive engagement, focus, time sensitivity for a chess player. Now let's go directly to the results. The results consistently indicated that pollution harms the player's performance in cognitive tasks. The estimation results show that a 10 microgram per cubic meter increase in PM2.5 levels results in a 1.5 percentage point increase in the probability of a player making a meaningful error with 10% larger errors. 10 micrograms per cubic meter PM2.5 levels, 10% larger errors in cognitive thinking. For those of you who are joining in from Delhi or any polluted part of the globe, we are way beyond this stage, right? But, you know, why care about chess players? It's an indoor sport. Some of us are outdoor sports people. We prefer football or baseball or hockey or cricket better. Completely understand. Let's take another example. This study is called the study Air Quality and Error Quantity, Pollution and Performance in a High-Skilled Quality-Focused Occupation, that of baseball umpires. All right. So while in the last study, it was an indoor study of chess players, this study is about baseball umpires. Now, before we go ahead, what are the three most important things for a baseball umpire? Focus, cognitive engagement, time sensitivity, right? Let's look at the results. The study across baseball games across the East Coast found that 1 parts per million increase in a 3-hour window in carbon monoxide causes an 11.5 increase in the propensity of umpires to make incorrect calls. 11.5% increase in making incorrect calls for 1 part per million increase in a 3-hour window of carbon monoxide levels. And a 10 microgram per cubic meter increase in a 12-hour PM2.5 window causes a 2.5% increase. So focus, cognitive engagement, time sensitivity, all of them are affected by a minuscule, and I mean nano minuscule increase in carbon monoxide or PM2.5 levels, both indoors and outdoors. I'll connect this to the larger point I'm making, but I want all of you to chew on this for a minute. Now, some of you might say that good thing I'm not into sports at all. I don't like chess and I don't like baseball and I don't like hockey and cricket and football, so I'm all good. Well, that's where economics of environmental policy really catches up on you. Because the one thing that I'm trying to establish through these 2-3 slides is things that are required in these professions: focus, cognitive engagement, time sensitivity. And let's look at some of the other professions that require these 3 things. If you're a stock market broker, time sensitive, focus, cognitively engaged. Air traffic controller, surgeons performing a surgery, miners, all of these people require focus, cognitive engagement, and time sensitivity. And a 1 parts per million increase or a 10 microgram per cubic meter increase can cause them to make almost 10% larger errors. But again, you might claim that I'm not a stock market broker or air traffic controller or surgeon or miner, but you are a student. Think of taking an exam, offline exam or online exam. You're sitting inside your room thinking that I'm absolutely prepared for this exam. And suddenly you realize that you've gone blank. And you're thinking that I knew the answer and it's completely slipping and I don't know why I'm forgetting. Well, for all you know, it could be the 10% in 10 microgram per cubic meter increase of PM 2.5 or 1 ppm increase in the indoor pollution and so on and so forth. That could be forcing you to make those larger errors cognitively. Because again, as a student, when you're writing an exam, cognitively engaged, focused, time sensitive. So it affects all of us. But the larger point, right? The larger point is this, that as an example, there is a surgeon operating upon a patient. And the surgeon is functioning or practicing in a city that has an FSI which is very low, say it's 1.2, 1.3. Because of which there are a lot of slums, a lot of suburbs, a lot of transportation infrastructure, and as a consequence, a lot of pollution. And there's a lot of indoor pollution in this operation theater, and the surgeon makes a mistake. The patient recovers and sues this medical professional. The consumer forum or the court says that you did make a negligent error and you have to pay this patient 20 lakh rupees or whatever, $100,000, whatever. Now the doctor says that skill-wise, I'm the best, I can prove it. I have done 5,000 of these operations. It is actually the land policy of the city, the urban policy of the city, which has caused the indoor pollution to be higher, which in turn has caused me to make larger errors without any fault of my own, because their land policy, which leads to a higher pollution level, is affecting my cognition, my focus, my time sensitivity, and hence I should not be held liable, and the local government or the state government or the provincial government should be held liable. And that's the importance of having transcribed and concentric policies, even if they're not tangentially related to environment. And that are the open-ended questions that economics of environmental policy deals with. And that's my lecture, guys. I hope this was fun and engaging. Always happy to discuss this further, always happy to interact with all of you or talk about any of these concepts in detail at any point of time. I'm putting in my email ID as much like Arpit. Please feel free to get in touch on LinkedIn if you need to. And yeah, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those as well.
Sir,
well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. It was a pleasure being here. I hope it was rewarding.
I wanted to introduce you, but you have introduced yourself when you began this very, very important, vibrant and thriving deliberation. And I personally feel that I learned a lot from your deliberations. And this should equally be correct about our students and other institutional affiliates, I mean other faculties, students from other faculties, in addition to the Faculty of Legal Studies. I immensely appreciate your contribution as well as the cooperation, institutional and individual, both kind of cooperations which have been extended in these two important sessions. And it is going to be a lasting relationship. It is not going to be confined a one-time interaction. Rather, our students are going to be immersed and involved and evolve, if I am allowed to quote your
I've heard that before, yes.
your message, which you have depicted as a very, very important deliberation. I mean, as a very important logo message, I should say.
Right.
So now I request my students, if they are having further deliberations, question in the form of questions, inputs, observations, and whatever they wish to contribute, they got 10 minutes to contribute. So I welcome them all. And once again, I put to record my sincere gratitude to GPOTS and Global Policy Insights Institutes, EnviPol, for their cooperation on behalf of the Faculty of Legal Studies particularly, and on behalf of the South Asian University in general. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, students are welcomed.
Sir, may
Yeah,
I?
Mr. Mohan, you wanted to say something. Yeah, please go ahead. How is your health?
Sir, thank you very much, sir. Sir, I'm doing fine right now. Just recovering. Like doctor has recommended me for like 15 to 17 days rest.
Yeah.
I've been
Inshallah,
discharged
you will
right now. Thank you, sir. Sir, my humble submission is
Hi, I think you're stuck. If you could.
Before
Yeah, some
properly
connectivity issue is there, I think. Yeah.
Sir, may I, sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible now. Please go ahead.
Sir, I have a submission before Professor Ishan Chaturvedi, sir, is that he can be our guest lecturer for at least one day at the weekend so that we can have more deliberations on the environment and other economics in relation to it.
Yeah, we will try, and I will convey
Especially the non-identity
to the
principle.
appropriate authority of Faculty of Legal Studies. Yes, Ms. Sajul is saying something.
No, sir, I was really excited about more on non-identity principle. So that would be great if you can just make time for us.
We'll make sure we can work something out. Otherwise, Om and Sajal, I invite you to get in touch with me directly, and I'm happy to discuss these things. My wife says that I'm annoyingly approachable for the students, so please feel free to reach out at any point.
That's a very good thing for us. We're so grateful.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. It was a complete pleasure. I completely echo your thoughts. This is the first of many. I think it was Casablanca where it was stated that I have a feeling that this is a start of a beautiful friendship. So I hope we continue these conversations, these workshops.
Yeah, we are going to institutionalize it. It is not going to be a one-time affair. It is going to be institutionalized as well as individualized as a permanent, feature of our engagements in days ahead. Inshallah, very positively. And I will take this message and the collective, feeling of the entire, online deliberations to the appropriate authority, and that is the chairperson, Dr. Stalina Jolly. So I will definitely convey, and I will, further facilitate that this should be a permanent feature of our engagement. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr.
And I'm
Mehta.
immensely thankful to Professor, Chaturvedi, other Chaturvedi, as well,
right.
she has immensely contributed a lot.
I'll pass it on.
Making a reality on this day.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Dr.
very
Ahmed. It
much.
was a pleasure, and thank you for taking out the time. This was truly wonderful. Thank you to all the students. Always a pleasure. Please keep in touch. Check out the GPOTS Fellowship, and please let me know if you need anything from us. Pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sushti, for organizing this. Bye, all.